Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
Chapter 1. Past? Future? Naruto, Kakashi, and Guy fought with the masked Mr. Nobody, noticing everything around them. Sasuke came, stood, watched the fight and joined the Konoha guys. Now there were 4 against 1, everyone missed the blinding white flash, not paying attention to it. The fight continued hotly, and finally, for Shinobi defeated Tobi, or Madara, or whoever he was under the mask. The body was completely incinerated, not even leaving a mask, although there remained a strange fan that this guy was carrying behind his back. But it had long been lying discarded a couple of meters from the carnage. The ninja breathed a sigh of relief and stretched out on the grass. Sasuke. I'll bring you back to Konoha. Naruto suddenly shouted, smiling maniacally and throwing his friend on his back. He began to tickle and hug him passionately. The poor brunette fought back in horror, and 2 Leaf Jonin were laughing brazenly nearby, not even trying to stop Naruto. They may not have lived long, but shinobi life is always short, but bright and full of events. So they understood the way Naruto decided to throw off his fatigue and negativity after a tough fight. The Uchiha cursed the blonde, calling down heavenly punishment on him in the form of lightning, but Naruto only laughed, continuing to squeeze his friend. This went on for about 20 minutes, until the 2 friends fell exhausted onto the grass. Something strange, Uzumaki muttered, looking around. A familiar forest, half of which was destroyed by Bee and Hachibi. Trees don't grow that fast, so either they are in the past or in the distant future. And we need to find out everything. Here, Kakashi handed 2 protectors to the boys. Shinobi? Uchiha examined the sign, and Uzumaki quickly changed his to the given protector. Then the Jonins took off their vests, and Naruto took off his jacket, tied it around his waist, hiding the sign on his back, and remained in a tight black t-shirt. Kakashi wrapped his head and left eye in bandages, and forcibly changed Guy into normal clothes. Having finished all the changes, the shinobi headed presumably towards Konoha. They walked cheerfully and with a flourish. Uchiha was in absolute shock, he had never seen his companions like this. Deep in his soul, the apostate began to regret the lost years, the empty dream. The goal of his whole life turned out to be false, but he was not going to admit it yet, not even to himself. Although, what can I say, he had already helped Uzumaki kill Tobi. Hey, Kakashi, let's have a bet, Guy started playing his favorite hurdy-gurdy. Why not, the white-haired man shrugged. Naruto watched the arguments with interest and had a lot of fun at their expense. Sasuke, what are you going to do when we reach the village? Uzumaki asked one day on one of the passes. Now the blonde was unexpectedly calm, he was lazily sprawled on the ground near the fire, chasing a torn blade of grass from one corner of his mouth to the other. Uchiha cast a suspicious glance at Naruto, but he was still lying there relaxed. Just know that I will not let you destroy the elders and Konoha. I will kill you with my own hands and die myself, I have already told you this, and I do not intend to go back on my words. Are you threatening? I'm warning you, idiot. Do you even realize how much everyone wants you back? Asked Naruto, who had been fed up for 3 years. Why do you need me? Sasuke said irritably. No, you're definitely an idiot. You're our friend and comrade, we grew up together, and you still say, why do we need you? Everyone loves you, cretin. Only you locked yourself in your shell out of hatred and revenge, and you don't see anything beyond your own person. Naruto got furious and turned away from his friend. They didn't talk anymore for now, Guy and Kakashi were chatting about something away from their younger comrades. Well, senseis have their own quirks and cockroaches in their heads. 3 days later, the 4 shinobi reached Konoha, and stood at the gates with their jaws hanging open. No more of the eternal guards Azuma and Kotetsu, just 4 faces on the Hokage rock. And how far back are we in the past? Naruto scratched his cheek thoughtfully. Well, obviously before Tsunade became the 5th, Kakashi drawled. Amazing observation, Sasuke responded caustically, the time spent with old acquaintances had a very beneficial effect on him. In any case, he stopped acting completely icy, even some emotions flickered in his eyes. Instead of 2 guards, there were 4 at the gate, and the gate itself was tightly closed. On the other side, 3 shinobi were walking towards the same gate. "Teacher," Kakashi exhaled in a suddenly hoarse voice. The 4th, Sasuke and Guy said in chorus, also quite surprised. "Father," Naruto whispered quietly with just his lips. All 4 shinobi stood stunned near the gate, their eyes fixed on Minato's team. "Ha, Kakashi, you were so funny," Naruto suddenly said, looking at the prickly Guy with his face already covered by a mask and indifferent eyes. Guy supported the statement with a laugh, even Sasuke smiled. "Quiet, no names," Kakashi, who had also come to his senses, hissed at the others. "Okay, dog," Guy quickly got his bearings, naming the first word that came to mind associated with Hatake. "Quiet, turtle," Kakashi rebuked him in a caustic voice, slightly offended by the nickname. The younger ones looked at each other and smiled in unison. "How do we get in?" asked Naruto. "It's wartime." "How do you know?" Uchiha was surprised. "Damn, and I was the one who was the worst at the academy," Uzumaki threw up his hands. Sasuke himself already realized his mistake. How could he forget that the yellow lightning of Konoha was the hero of the Third War? "Out of the frying pan, into the fire," Kakashi drawled. Finally, the Leaf Shinobi team had already caught up with the strange shinobi who had been looking at them and whispering for quite some time. "Who are you?" Namikaze asked harshly. "We are hired shinobi," Kakashi replied, casting a fleeting glance at his companions. The blonde looked at the others. Indeed, each had a protector with the hieroglyph shinobi on the plate. They looked like quite ordinary ninja. "But why did they come to Konoha?" which Namikaze voiced. "To earn some money, of course," snorted the blonde, in orange pants and a black t-shirt. Next to him, a black-haired guy in strange clothes chuckled and grinned. If the other 3 were dressed more or less the same, then this one was very different. Although it may be a style, peculiar. "Okay," Minato nodded in agreement, turning around, nodding to his students, and went to the gate. He spoke with the guards, and all 7 shinobi entered the village. The 3 from the future were already unaccustomed to seeing Konoha like this. They were used to the huge pit from Pain's technique, albeit hastily built up with houses. The 4th traveler was relatively indifferent. He still remembered Konoha like this and was not surprised, showed no emotions at all. "Well, we're off," Minato said, and together with his comrades he set off on his way. "What are we going to do?" Naruto asked Kakashi. "To earn some extra money," he snapped. "You're a meanie," Uzumaki made a face, looking very much like a fox. "Indeed, how can we earn some money?" "May the power of youth be with us," Guy said, for which he almost immediately received a slap on the back of the head from his friend. "We'll figure it out." "What if to the Hokage?" Naruto scratched the back of his head. "Perhaps we won't be able to return back to ourselves. But then, knowing the subsequent events, we can prevent them." All 3 shinobi stared in surprise at the blonde, who almost never had such brilliant ideas. Everyone silently agreed and went to the Hokage residence. Perhaps they could become shinobi of this village. Again. "We're going to the Hokage," said the team's unofficial leader, Kakashi. "Assigned?" the masked shinobi asked suspiciously. "No, we wanted to offer our strength in the ongoing war," the copyist continued calmly. "Well, let's go." Both A and BU went to accompany the travelers. As soon as they were in the Hokage's office, everyone groaned softly. What idiots they were, they had just seen the 4th and forgot that he had already become one. "Oh, mercenaries," Namikaze was surprised, looking up from the mountain of papers on the table. "Hello," Kakashi smiled as charmingly as possible, even though only one eye was visible. "So, do you want to find a job with us?" "Yes. And perhaps we will stay here permanently," nodded Hatake. "Well, the ninjas won't bother us," the 4th also nodded. "Introduce yourself." "Dog," Kakashi introduced himself. "Turtle, Guy." "Hawk, Sasuke." "Fox, Naruto." "And the real names?" Minato drawled. "We can't tell you," Kakashi added, smiling sweetly again. "It's a pity," Minato said again, upset, although he immediately became cheerful. "Then I'll treat you to ramen for our acquaintance." Naruto, and the others too, could barely hold back their smiles. now it was clear where Uzumaki's love for noodles came from, and his changeable character as the wind too. Namikaze called Anbu, ordered him to show the 4 new shinobi a place to stay overnight, gave them their protectors, and let everyone go. The Anbu man looked at the ninja with interest and was burning with curiosity, but remained silent, as expected, and spoke only on the matter. The house turned out to be small, traditional style, only 2 rooms, a small kitchen, a bathroom, and a small courtyard. The 4 travelers gathered for a small war council. Whether to reveal themselves to the Hokage, whether to change history, and other important questions. The blonde once again distinguished himself with a smart idea: to get used to the new place, look around, and prepare for Kurama's attack. Kurama? Sasuke asked again. Yes, that's Kyuubi's name, Naruto nodded. Uchiha just looked at his friend in shock. The hyperactive blonde had always been loud and intrusive, and who, back then in childhood, could have known that the social outcast would grow up to be the hero of not only Konoha, but also the entire shinobi world, would be able to make friends with the fox, defeat Pain single-handedly and win, almost single-handedly, the war. Only now, finally, Sasuke realized that he had been doing the wrong thing all those almost 4 years after leaving the village. Now he could hardly keep up with his best friend. So he decided to train hard to at least be equal. Don't be sad, Sasuke, Kakashi advised, seeing that his student was thinking hard about something. I'm not sad, was the answer from the brunette. And you, Naruto, are a good boy, you know how to think sometimes. Hatake sent a jab to his other student. Yeah, I can. Did you really think, Kakashi-sensei, that I never think at all? The blonde didn't give in to the provocation, not even jumping up from his chair, as he would have done in the past future. I'm just lazy. The role of the main lazy person seems to be played by Shikamaru, Sasuke noted. So what? Can't anyone else be lazy except him? By the way, we don't have time for this. I want training. Now Naruto jumped up and began to rush to the training ground. Apparently even a little communication with Guy has such an effect on the minds of young shinobi. Well, let's go. Sasuke wasn't against it either. No, I'll read it, Kakashi responded to the expressive looks of his former students. We need to find Jiraiya and stop him from writing these greasy little books, Naruto grumbled as he left. 2 guys were walking through the village, slowly, looking around. They passed and stopped for a long time near the academy, recalled their funny incidents, laughed at that kiss. You know, it was a mistake for me to leave, Sasuke suddenly said, looking at the sky. You wanted revenge, Naruto said, also looking at the sky, and thanks to you I became so strong when I created Rasen Shuriken. I almost gave up, but I remembered you, and found the strength to continue further. What kind of technique is that? Sasuke asked more animatedly. Wind release, I completed the Rasengan. And by the way, there are some advantages to leaving too. You killed Orochimaru, the original White Zetsu, Danzo, and helped kill that Tobi. Well, thank you, Uchiha responded caustically, although it was nice that his friends saw him as a useful ally and even looked up to him in order not to fall behind in strength. You're right about that, my only mistake was that I killed my brother. And it was quite fun with Taka, they constantly reminded me of you, Sakura, and Kakashi. I'm flattered, the blonde smiled with one corner of his lips. The locals were looking at the 2 handsome young men and whispering, but they didn't pay any attention to it and simply walked towards the training ground. By the way, where are we going? Uchiha suddenly came to his senses. To the Forest of Death? I don't think there will be any extra eyes there, our powers are too specific. You have the Sharingan, and also the Eternal Mangekyo, I have the Toad Hermit and Bija modes, and the Rasengan to boot, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. Again, a good idea, Uzumaki, you definitely shouldn't have pretended to be an idiot. I will always remain one, he even responded, offended. You know how to surprise, the brunette grinned. But I'm the most unpredictable ninja of Konoha, Naruto said as if it was obvious, throwing his hands behind his head and smiling broadly. The training grounds began, 2 friends walked purposefully towards the Forest of Death. Keep an eye on our new shinobi. I want to know their strength, Minato told his ANBU, and yes, I need the Jonin to test them. That's all. With the last word, the 4 ANBU instantly disappeared, going to carry out the order. Okay, I think we're far enough, time to start training, Naruto commanded, stopping. Shadow clones. There were several claps, but no clones were visible. Naruto himself took a fighting stance. The guys began warming up with taijutsu, gradually getting into the swing of things and increasing the pace. Uchiha hadn't trained like this for a long time, with his Sharingan deactivated and without lightning. About 40 minutes later, Naruto recalled the first clone, switching to Sannin mode. The shinobi immediately accelerated and the blows became much stronger. Sasuke had to activate the Sharingan and accelerate. Using lightning, he tried to extinguish the force of the blows inflicted on him. However, then Susanoo, Chidori and the element of fire came into play. Naruto did not enter the Bija mode, remained in the hermit mode, and continued fist fighting whenever possible, but used the huge Rasengan a couple of times. He did not want to use the Rasen Shuriken, and although he knew perfectly well that he could be stopped by Susanoo, he still did not want to risk it. For another hour they chased each other through the forest. Even the terrible predators that lived here did not crawl out of their holes to see who had brought such a noisy thing to them. Then they both fell down, exhausted, smiling stupidly and looking at the clear blue sky. The day was already beginning to draw to an end and the two friends, having rested, were getting ready to go back to their place of residence. "You know there are two ANBU guys watching us?" Naruto asked, lying on his back motionless, gathering senjutsu. "Good fighters, I don't feel it." "Your brother is there, it's strange that you don't feel it," the blonde chuckled. "I'm hungry," Sasuke suddenly said, and his stomach supported his master's statement. "Me too. And I left the money at home. In the future Konoha, no one told me that money is needed in the war, and even more so, no one told me that I would end up in the past. It would be more fun if they told you. But it's a shame, you should always take cash with you." "And you have it?" The blonde raised himself on his elbow and looked slyly at the brunette. "No," Sasuke answered, blushing slightly and turning away. Uzumaki quietly laughed, stood up himself and helped his friend up, leaving the training ground together. They were incredibly hungry, so Sasuke and Naruto quickly jumped across the rooftops, away from the shopping district. "And where are they?" asked Uchiha, entering the new house. "Let's go somewhere to argue," Naruto responded, kicking off his sandals in the hallway and stretching out on the living room floor. There were two rooms. The larger one, with the proud name of living room, was chosen by the eternal rivals Kakashi and Guy. The second, almost tiny one, by Sasuke and Naruto. They would even have to sleep almost hugging each other. "Look, they're still following us," Sasuke said, looking out the window. "It would be surprising if they stopped," Uzumaki drawled from the floor. He had no intention of getting up. "Maybe there's something to eat here?" Uchiha muttered, starting to rummage through the cabinets. "Your favorite ramen, tea, sugar, we're alive." Naruto, hearing about ramen, immediately jumped up and flew to the kitchen like a bullet. They really live, and their stomachs, very hungry after training, happily rumbled in anticipation of food. The friends quickly ate and went to bed without waiting for their elders, because they were not little and would find their way home. "I report, Hokage-sama." The two younger newcomers, Fox and Hawk, were training in the Forest of Death. "Unfortunately, we didn't see the entire training, but I can say for sure, they are strong. The black-haired one uses lightning and fire release. The blonde one uses taijutsu and senjutsu," the ANBU clearly reported. He was a young guy, with black hair, tied in a short ponytail. Uchiha Itachi had just recently taken up his new post, and was very responsible about everything. That black-haired man, Hawk, was very interesting to Itachi. He even thought he saw a red glow of the Sharingan, but literally a second later he decided that he had imagined it. "I see," Minato nodded thoughtfully. "And what were the dog and the turtle doing?" "I report that they went to the shopping district, first went into a gambling house, then into the new Ichiraka ramen noodle shop, bought a few portions to take with them, and went to the house assigned to them," another ANBU answered. "Well done, keep up the good work." The ANBU quickly disappeared again. In the morning, Kakashi woke everyone up before dawn. He heard many flattering things about himself, and informed everyone that they would most likely be tested today, introduced to the others, and brought up to speed. Hatake was the only one present who knew Minato and his character well enough. For breakfast, there was ramen from Ichiraku, which everyone was happy about. And in no time, the plates were clean. Then Hatake handed Naruto and Sasuke some money, God knows where it came from, and sent them both to get normal clothes. Both of them will probably have to wear Chunin vests now, and the brunette has the Uchiha clan sign on his back. How no one has asked about it yet is unclear. The two genin went to buy clothes. Naruto did not deny himself his favorite color and left his pants, saying that they were dear to him as a memory, bought several black and orange t-shirts and turtlenecks. Uchiha bought himself normal pants, normal turtlenecks, and couldn't resist buying a couple of t-shirts with a wide stand-up collar, which he loved so much as a child. We changed our clothes in the store, showed off to each other, and headed back, extremely pleased with the morning that had begun. Guy and Kakashi were waiting for them, also already gathered, outside. The two younger ones threw the bags into the house, and all four of them went to the Hokage building. "Are you the new ones?" asked one of the jonins that the fourth had called, putting all missions on hold. Yes, Kakashi nodded, as always playing the role of the main one in their company. Some of those gathered were remembered by everyone from the future, others even Kakashi remembered vaguely. There were very young Asuma, Kurenai, Kakashi himself, Itachi, Shursui and some other Uchiha, even Iruka was there. The fourth came out of the office, and everyone went to the training ground. Naruto got Asuma, Sasuke got Kakashi, the elder Kakashi got Itachi, and Guy got Shikaku Nara. The tested shinobi held back. Guy, as always, used mainly taijutsu, Kakashi Sr. used earth and water elements, Sasuke lightning, and Naruto practically the basis of his training at the academy, only shadow clones, and some wind elemental techniques were different. Still, the fights turned out to be colorful. The smart Sasuke and Naruto sometimes even changed opponents to confuse the examiners. After 20 minutes, Minato stopped everything, handed them all vests, clarified who was Jonin and Chunin, who would be the team captain, and what the team name was. The rest of the spectators congratulated the newcomers, introduced themselves, told about themselves, and everyone peacefully dispersed throughout the village. The Hokage immediately gave the Beasts team a mission, deciding to test them once again. Rank A, Naruto grumbled a little, and that was for fun, that they were given easy tasks. The animals returned a week later, tired, scratched, but terribly happy. Sasuke thought even more, becoming more sociable. So Naruto was still pleased with this fact, and the blonde himself, relatively, stopped pretending to be an idiot all the time. He only tried to make his teammates laugh with stupid antics, but he didn't scream like crazy. Uzumaki had already forgotten that he was wearing a mask. He pretended to be a brainless idiot to attract attention, to be looked at, even with hatred. More precisely, he responded to hatred with dirty tricks. Everyone has their own ways of showing resentment. Now it was somehow forgotten, the mask came off, and Naruto became free in his actions. Namake's Minato was pleased with the new team, and in the evening he took them to Ichiraku as promised. Adult Kakashi, having changed his hairstyle to a ponytail on the back of his head, a bandana on top, but still covering his eye and the same collar covering the entire lower part of his face, walked next to Guy. The green beast of Konoha was in melancholy. Not only had they changed his clothes and not given him his favorite tights, but they also forbade him to shout about the power of youth. The other two went to training immediately after returning to the village. Sasuke tried to learn to master one more element, Naruto two more, to even the score with his friend. Of course, they tried to create a couple of joint techniques. The most successful, and quite destructive technique they got in a mixture of wind and lightning whirlwind. Uzumaki found books on all the elements in the archives and, not without the help of clones, the next morning he was able to create many wind release techniques. One of them was the main one for the combination, whirlwind. Sasuke used his beloved Chidori, only a little differently. But for now, this was their only joint technique. They decided to combine the rest after studying other elements. Who knows, maybe they will create such a technique that even Rasen Shuriken will seem like a gentle technique. The two Chunin joined the others as they began to eat their ramen and chat, Minato trying hard to get them to share any information about the team other than what they had seen during the inspection. The animals also stubbornly kept silent and joked. They might have wanted to tell, but most likely they would blab about something, and that was completely unnecessary now. "I'm just at a loss to guess what your true strength is," Namake's drawled, "and the fact that you have it, you don't even have to say, it's felt." And for some reason it seems to me that you won't answer. Then why are you asking, fourth? Naruto asked, looking up from his ramen. It's interesting. For shinobi, clearly strong, hidden names, and you all remind me of someone. Oh, come on, Namike-san, Kakashi said with a sweet smile. He could be exposed faster than anyone else, after all, he was the Yellow Lightning student. Okay, but someday I'll beat a story out of you about who you are, Minato gave in for the time being. We'll definitely tell you, Naruto smiled widely, and Minato smiled widely in response. Now both were practically identical copies, and it was good that they didn't see each other from the outside, otherwise all the conspiracy would go down the drain. In general, the author has problems with chapter titles, so most likely there won't be any more. From that day on, Team Beasts went exclusively on difficult missions. The war ended with their help rather quickly, literally in the first days after the transfer. Konoha and Sand made peace, Cloud and Stone held a grudge against each other, Cloud kept quiet. Jiraiya returned to the village. He had already taught his students almost everything that he knew. A month later, Sasuke Uchiha was born, and his older self felt very strange. It was even stranger to watch Itachi gently rocking his brother. Sasuke himself didn't know why he was following him, but he couldn't resist. Naruto often joined him, the blonde watched the life of the clan and of course his friend's brother, too. Uzumaki, like Sasuke, was very interested in getting to know the formidable Akatsuki from this family side. Itachi was the perfect brother, loving and caring. It was hard to believe that Itachi later became a cold-blooded killer of the entire clan. Although if you think about it a little more, it was clear why and for whom Uchiha went to such atrocities. Kushina Uzumaki also walked around with a big belly, and Naruto was gnawing at his elbows. He was afraid that the birth was approaching, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to help in time. Another month flew by almost unnoticed. For the beasts there were only missions and in the evenings discussing the plan to prevent an attack by the fox. They were all very worried. Naruto was for stopping Tobi right away, not letting Kurama be freed. But how to kill this dodgy bastard without hurting the nurse, the third and fourth's wives, or the newborn? The only hope was Naruto and Sasuke. One was strong with the Bija mode, the other with the power of the eyes, which could easily counter Mr. Nobody. On that fateful day, Naruto and Sasuke were watching Kushina and Minato. From his mother's stories, Uzumaki remembered that she was leaving the village, but he didn't know where, he only knew that it would be a well-guarded hideout. We'll have to carefully penetrate inside without harming the ANBU guards. It's difficult, but possible. Two friends, a brunette and a blonde, overheard their mothers talking. They hoped that their sons would become friends when they grew up. The touched, already grown-up sons could only try not to cry out loud and not to lose their vigilance. If their mothers had known what they had to go through, none of them would have wanted such a fate for their son. The friends understood this perfectly well and mentally swore that they would not let fate and history repeat themselves at all costs. Kakashi and Guy stayed outside nearby, the Naruto clone waited in a remote area of the forest. The original and Sasuke hid under the ceiling of the small room where the birth would take place. It has begun, Naruto whispered under his breath, not taking his eyes off his father and mother. The blonde himself began to collect natural energy, the more there was, the better. In the 2 months he had been here, he had significantly increased the time he could spend in sage mode. The birth continued, the seal slowly began to open, Minato panicked, which was completely unlike himself. Sasuke watched the blood-curdling action with wide eyes, and was terribly interested in what was happening. Naruto sensed Tobi approaching. All the guards were stunned and Uzumaki clones were placed, all of them also collected natural energy, and when they disappeared, they transmitted the information. The first cry of the baby was heard, Naruto and Sasuke shuddered. Minato and Kushina were terribly happy and did not feel the approach of the stranger. Sasuke from his post cast an illusion on the location of Biwako and the nurse. Tobi killed the wrong ones, or rather an empty place. The two women were already quite far from the scene of action. Safe, another unnoticed clone of Naruto sent them to the village with a version of his father's technique. And then the guy in the mask was surrounded by 4 shinobi. "Close the seal, Minato!" Naruto shouted, not even turning around to look at the person he was addressing. The Uzumaki was completely focused on the upcoming fight. Namikaze was confused and continued to panic. "Damn, Databeo," Uzumaki hissed, mentally ordering the clone to stick his father's kunai into the ground and teleport here himself. Slam. "Close the seal," Naruto ordered the clone, and he himself began to cover himself in a demonic yellow fire cloak. The Kyuubi inside the Jinchuriki hissed and spat, eager to join the fight as well. But here, unfortunately, there is too little space. Kakashi removed the bandage from his eye. Sasuke's Sharingan was burning brightly. All four of them were extremely serious, and back then, only by working together were they able to defeat him. Who knows what Toby is capable of now. Minato finally came to his senses and also stared at the masked man with an attentive gaze. Naruto's clone busily summoned the key and closed the seal on Kushina's stomach. The woman could not think of anything now and relaxed. And the clone went to his infant original and rushed towards the exit like a yellow lightning. It was this action that served as the beginning of the attack. Naruto created Rasen Shuriken, Sasuke created Susanoo, Kakashi prepared Raikiri, and Guy opened the fifth gate. The beasts attacked at the same time, but for now Toby was only dodging and had no intention of attacking. Minato quickly transported Kushina to his house using his technique. Toby tried to break through after him, because he needed the Kyuubi. But, to the mask wearer's regret and annoyance, Sasuke had encountered his technique more than once and interfered. Then Toby didn't sit back and try to attack. But he got hit too. Naruto managed to hit him from behind with a mini Rasen Shuriken. The shockwave blew the shelter into pieces, the beasts managed to run away, and Naruto was able to move the two of them to the kunai in a clearing deep in the forest. Minato returned to the former hideout. He is the Hokage and is obliged to prevent the attack. Kakashi, immediately jumping up to the teacher, quickly described the situation and asked to send them all to the place where the fox and the guy in the mask were currently fighting. He alone can only hold him back, but not kill him, Hatake said hurriedly. "I'll go to Kushina-san, that's who the masked man is hunting." Okay, Minato had completely pulled himself together and was now acting quite coolly. He would ask all the questions later. "They promised me their story, finally I will hear it," flashed through the Hokage's head. Kakashi made a seal and disappeared with a pop. Minato extended his hand to the remaining two beasts and all three moved to the clearing. Chapter 5, Rescue, continued, and the death of Toby a bad, very, boy I'll spoil the readers a little more, before bedtime, so to speak. Naruto and Toby were fighting hard. The masked man didn't have as many aces up his sleeve as the resurrected Jinchuriki and the Sharingan and Rinnegan, so the advantage was starting to shift to the blonde's side. Until Toby realized that another Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails was standing in front of him. Mr. Nobody entered Naruto's subconscious, saw the cage and the fox, the seal was half open. "Not so fast," said a cold voice behind the mask maker. He looked around, but saw no one. And Naruto moved to the gate with the seal. The chakra on his fingertips ignited again, and Naruto opened the seal completely, spreading his arms wide to the side. The gate opened frighteningly quietly. Toby was simply swept out of the Jinchuriki's subconscious by a powerful stream of mixed chakra. A huge fox appeared in the real world, with Naruto on his head. Both were as if shrouded in fire, and strange lines ran across their bodies. "This is even better," Toby narrowed his Sharingan. "Don't even hope." Kurama and Naruto shouted together. At this moment, more characters appeared on the scene. Minato swallowed hard when he noticed the fox. Sasuke, casting a fleeting glance at his friend, was enveloped in the purple flames of Susanoo. Now the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan burned in his eyes. Guy opened the sixth gate and rushed first to attack. Naruto also didn't sit around and attacked from the other side. Minato created Rasengan and tried to attack from the fourth. 40 minutes of grueling combat, at the limit of his abilities, but Toby managed to kill again. The shocked ANBU squad and the third silently looked at the battlefield. They sensed the Kyuubi's chakra and rushed to find out what was going on. Imagine their surprise when they arrived at the scene of a heated battle that was already coming to an end. "That's it." Naruto exhaled contentedly, wiping sweat from his face. "I wish I had killed him a couple more times," the fox rumbled, grinning, also quite pleased with the battle. Thank you, Kurama, Naruto thanked, you can go and rest. The blonde used the key to close the seal again, and the fox immediately disappeared from the real world, laying down to sleep in his long familiar cage in his friend's subconscious. Guy fell on his side and was breathing heavily. Opening the 7 gates does not lead to anything good. Sasuke ran towards Naruto as fast as he could, managed to catch him, but he fell too. Both friends smiled the happy smiles of idiots. Minato looked at the beast's team in complete shock. Now you won't get out of this, he almost groaned, also sinking down onto the grass. Hokage-sama. Anbu and the third were breaking through to the blonde shinobi. Are you okay? What happened here? Who was it? What was the 9-tailed fox doing here? Questions rained down from all sides, but Minato only waved his hand wearily. Everything tomorrow, now I need to make sure that everything is okay with my wife and son. My clone brought him to our house, Naruto is sleeping now, Uzumaki responded. Kushina also fell asleep, or rather, she had to be put to sleep, she was rushing here. The sepulchral voice of Kakashi, who had just appeared, was heard. Hatake would not admit it, but he also wanted to participate in the next murder of the guy in the mask. Thank you, Minato smiled gratefully. All those who fought with Tobi were taken home, although Sarutobi insisted on hospitalization. No way, they won't let us out of there, it's better to send Granny Tsunade, Naruto kicked back, laying down on the futon. Granny? Hiruzen was surprised, the Sannin medic was still quite young for such an address. Well, yeah, the blonde smiled embarrassedly, and in order not to say anything more unnecessary, he quickly fell asleep. In the morning, all the ANBU were already aware of what was happening, the lower-ranking Jonin and Chunin did not know the details. They just knew that someone had attacked at night, but everything was fine, the attack had been repelled, everyone was alive and well. Naruto and Sasuke woke up almost at the same time. Uzumaki opened his eyes and began to mentally inspect the wounds he had received during the night. Kurama might have been sleeping off too, but even so he managed to heal both Naruto and the sleeping Uchiha. Thanks to that meeting in the subconscious and the strong affection of friends on an emotional background, they gave the opportunity for Kyuubi to enter the Uchiha's consciousness, to give a drop of the demon's healing chakra. It was poisonous precisely because of the demon fox's hatred for everyone. Sasuke also opened his eyes and blinked in amazement, looking at the white ceiling with glare and reflections of the sun. He thought that he would lie there for several days practically blind, but here he had clear vision and no pain in his eyes. Small and not so small wounds also healed and did not bother him at all. The feeling and mood were simply wonderful, there was some kind of lightness in everything. Good morning, Naruto noticed out of the corner of his eye how Uchiha was feeling his body and chuckling in amazement. And you too, the brunette responded, sitting down on the futon. Are you awake? Kakashi looked into the room, it's time to have breakfast and go to Minato-sensei on the carpet. The two friends sighed heavily, finally rising to their feet. Guy moved at a snail's pace and looked very exhausted, although it was nothing compared to yesterday's state. The green beast of Konoha sat down on a chair with groans and gasps. Hatake placed a bowl of rice and a cup of tea in front of him and handed him chopsticks. Uchiha and Uzumaki took their own food and also sat down. Having slightly suppressed their hunger, everyone began to discuss at the table. What should we do now? Father will find out about us today, Naruto asked, looking thoughtfully out the window. I want to save my clan from destruction, Sasuke fixed his black eyes on the table. Then we'll save him, Guy responded, quickly straightening up, but immediately began to groan again, clutching his back. Tobi said that the Uchiha were planning a coup, Kakashi noted. Then we must prevent it, exclaimed the eternally optimistic blonde. How? Sasuke dealt with his embarrassment and already irritatedly stared at Uzumaki. Somehow. For example, with the help of your brother, a bright thought once again visited the bright, in color, head. I think we'll do that, Kakashi summed up, putting the dishes away in the sink. The dishes are on you, Naruto, Sasuke remarked mockingly, also sending his dishes to the sink. Why? Because Gai-san won't be able to wash it, Uchiha explained to his little friend. Okay, but I won't just leave it like that, Uzumaki narrowed his eyes, looking like an angry fox. Having finished cleaning and washing the dishes, the four ninja went to the carpet to see their superiors. Naruto put on his usual jacket, with a standard vest over it. Uchiha put on the white shirt he had gotten herein, also throwing a vest over it. Dai and Kakashi, it seemed like they were inseparable with these vests. All the ninjas glanced sideways at the four beasts. Their overall, still rumpled, appearance and torn clothes in some places showed that the rumors about the night battle were not fiction. "Good morning, Hokage-sama," Kakashi said docilely, smiling sweetly for the umpteenth time. "Names?" Namikaze shouted sternly, slamming his palm on the table, really impatient to hear everything. The four ninja sighed in unison. Hatake Kakashi. Might Guy. Uchiha Sasuke. Uzumaki Naruto. What? Minato asked again. It was obvious that in front of him were two Jonin, a month-old Uchiha, and his own son, born only yesterday. Kakashi took on the role of narrator. As the story progressed, the fourth's eyes widened more and more. That's how they have adventures. And why are you telling me this? It's dangerous, isn't it? Minato asked, thoughtfully looking at his adult son, who was now standing with an absolutely calm face. Which is very strange. Kakashi was singing the praises of his student's strength and assertiveness, and the blonde crossed his arms over his chest and didn't react to anything. So you're saying that the masked one turned out to be the Akatsuki leader? Minato asked again, thoughtfully running his index finger across his lips. Yes, he used the original Akatsuki, practically controlled them all, perverting quite noble goals, Naruto responded dully. The same conversation with Nagato flashed before the guy, where they overcame their hatred for each other. The red-haired Akatsuki turned out to be not so bad, only Nagato and his girlfriend were confused by evil uncles. And now Naruto with all his heart wanted to save them too. And then Tobi started a war, he used me too, my hatred for Konoha. Sasuke turned his gaze out the window. He also remembered what nonsense he suffered from and how many mistakes he made, and how hard it was to follow the path of hatred. Especially seeing that even the maniacal killer Gaara became a normal and kind friend of Naruto, that the impenetrable older brother smiled warmly when he spoke about Uzumaki. He really wanted to drop everything, run to Konoha, fall into his friend's arms and burst into tears, forgetting about all his revenge. "Don't worry," Naruto said seriously, sympathetically placing his hand on the brunette's shoulder. "This is all in the past for us, but for them we won't allow everything to go according to the same scenario." "Thank you, friend," Uchiha smiled gratefully. "Well, I found out everything I wanted. Now it seems to me that it would have been better to remain in ignorance." Namikaze sighed. "Change your names, or will you continue to hide behind call signs?" "We'll think about it," Kakashi answered for everyone, and the beasts left. Chapter 6 They didn't bother with coming up with names for now, and just lived quietly, went on missions. Naruto took care of himself. Uzumaki tried to protect little Naruto from mistakes, tried to teach him useful things that he had to learn for a long time and on his own. Because there was no one around. Of course, Naruto Jr. doted on the boy, who was so similar to his father. And the first word the blonde said to his adult copy was brother. The Namikaze couple looked at each other in confusion, not knowing how to react to such a statement. "Maybe I'll be some kind of uncle to him? I don't really need to explain who I am." He looked back at his surprised parents. "I don't know," Minato responded. He himself was at a loss, and hadn't quite gotten used to the fact that his own son from the future was living nearby after almost a year and a half. The two blondes were deep in thought, and the red-haired Kunoichi shrugged and turned all her attention to the child. Kushina would never admit to anyone how grateful she was to the Beast's team, who saved them all from certain death. She was also very worried about what would happen to these people next, although she drove all the bad thoughts away from herself. They are strong and never give up, so why should she give up? It's not in her character. Sasuke now avoided the Uchiha quarter, although he still ended up there, and all the Uzumaki. This hyperactive blonde had already made friends with the entire village, including Itachi. How Naruto had persuaded Itachi to be his friend, Sasuke was afraid to even imagine, let alone ask. He was afraid of his brother, afraid that if he started to communicate closely with him, he would one day lose patience and burst into tears on his chest, constantly asking for forgiveness. And such behavior is not for a representative of the Uchiha clan. Shame on him. What was even more surprising was that the rest of the clan treated him quite normally, and this is according to Tobi's stories, that the Uchiha hated the Senju? Naruto is certainly not one of them, but if there was a conflict of the strength of the spirit with the strength of the eyes, then everything is very unclear, especially the reaction of the clan. Perhaps it is in this extraordinary way that Naruto will suppress the rebellion. Kakashi and Guy were having a blast. Kakashi Jr. and Guy Jr. were catching up with them, which made the elders laugh quite a bit. Kakashi also communicated quite closely with Minato, and didn't even notice that he still called him sensei, although he was much older than his teacher. Namikaze quickly became convinced that this was indeed his student. The most convincing thing was the Sharingan. By the way, it was quite difficult to explain its presence to Hatake. More precisely, the unexpected question came from Kakashi Jr., and the elder was simply confused, but got out of it by saying that he had received the Sharingan from his friend in childhood, in a similar case. The friend was seriously and fatally ill, and before his death he gave his eyes to the dog, because he had lost his in an accident. Poor little Kakashi almost burst into tears. The incident was so similar to his with Obito, and it had not yet faded from memory, and it would not go away. The melancholy would only become duller. Guy trained himself and never stopped talking about the power of youth. The rest of the team gave up on it. Big deal. Lee also looked like Guy's illegitimate son in his tights and with the same hairdo. However, the 5-year lull ended with the meeting of little Sasuke and Naruto. The first was a bit arrogant, adored and imitated his brother. The second was mischievous and always egged the first on to do tricks. And very successfully, I must say. Sasuke was a good boy only at home, but on the street he became a real brat. Naruto was the ringleader in the company of children. The characters of the other children didn't change much. They still loved to make fun of Naruto, maybe a little kinder, and the blonde himself never tired of laughing at their jokes. And this whole gang made plans and played pranks every day. Naruto! Iruka yelled, when once again the fuss and laughter of children who had come out to do another dirty trick could be heard. Yumino had only recently become a teacher at the academy, and had not yet developed a character. He was too soft, which Naruto and company had proven more than once. The kids almost always ruined the teacher when, after yet another prank, he took them to Ichiraku. And so 5 years passed. It was quiet, there was peace outside the village gates, no one attacked, the Akatsuki did not show up, everything was fine. Maybe you should change your names after all? Minato asked in a lazy voice when their entire male company had gathered in the living room of the Namikaze house, and Jiraiya had joined them. The children and Kushina were absent from the house. Uzumaki had gone for a walk with Mikoto and the other mothers of the children, and the children themselves were pestering Iruka as usual. Well, you can, Kakashi answered just as lazily, Saito right on. The rest giggled and decided to take some funny names. Then, Guy drawled, Shinomori Aoshi. Ha, Sita Sojiro, Naruto grinned, and Sasuke is Hiko Sejiro. Everyone laughed, including Uchiha himself. That'll do, Minato smiled, and Jiraiya pulled out bottles of sake from somewhere. If only Granny Tsunade were here, she would give you a good beating, perverted hermit, Naruto said in a dreamy voice. Forgive me, Sojiro. He was so happy to see a living teacher that he couldn't resist telling him their story too. No need Tsunade, otherwise I'll go on an unplanned trip. When I wake up, Jiraiya threw up his hands in panic, laughter rang out again. The love of 2 of the 3 great Sannin for alcohol was known throughout Konoha and beyond. But no one else objected, and Sannin poured alcohol for the men. Naruto, were you like Naruto? What a pun, Minato grumbled after several cups. Well, it was harder for me. I grew up alone, I didn't have parents, but I had the hatred of the entire village. But my character was the same, answered Uzumaki, also slightly tipsy. Training with Jiraiya doesn't just happen. Did you really think that they only trained and went to the springs? Poor child, Jiraiya sobbed, hanging on the blonde's neck. Ero-sanin, leave me alone. The blonde was struggling and looking at the others with despair and silent plea. I think I already said that I am the great Uzumaki Naruto, the hero of Konoha and the shinobi world. I never give up, and I always see my goals through to the end. You're not an Uzumaki anymore, you moron, Sasuke slapped him on the back of the head. Team. How dare you, let's go fight. With pleasure, Uchiha grinned, the Sharingan twirling in his eyes in anticipation. Kakashi rolled his eyes and grabbed them by the scruff of their necks. How much time passes, and they still don't change, although maybe it's for the best. There they are with Guy, they also remained the same, which is very evident in the example of their younger copies. When Kushina and Naruto returned, they saw 6 drunk men lying in a heap in the middle of the living room. Men, Tebane, was all the woman said, pushing Naruto, who was playing, into his room. Explanations. I don't know how to translate Sato's last name. Raidon is the god of thunder. Shinamori Aoshi, green bamboo forest. Sita Sojiro, all-encompassing forgiveness. Hiko Sejiro, justice triumphed. Since I don't know how to understand Japanese names and surnames, I brazenly ripped them off from the article. Chapter 7 Naruto Namikaze was definitely happy. He had loving parents and a lot of their friends. And what could be more interesting for a child than communicating with peers? The most important and closest was Uchiha Sasuke. Of course, they are quite different, but also similar, especially in their assertiveness. The same Sasuke instilled in Naruto a love for the printed word. When they were not playing tricks on adults, they spent their days in the library, and for their age they were well-read. They were most interested in books about ninjas, they dreamed of becoming them, like everyone else in their company. And new tricks from books about shinobi only added spice to them. Next, Shikamaru and Chiji were important to Naruto. Both were smart, and the former was always their main strategist. The girls, Hinata, Ino, Sakura, and Tenten, were a bit noisy, but so sweet. And most importantly, useful. Little Hyuga was learning to use the Byakugan. The other girls were charming, saying that they had nothing to do with it, and that they were just runaway boys. So the girls had fun too. Well, of course they fought for the boys, however, the future men themselves also fought for the hearts of their little ladies. Sojiro and Sejiro, a blonde and a brunette, went to another training session. Now both had learned the 3 elements, and were just about to figure out in battle what new combinations they could create. Children came running to see the very beautiful fight, but thank Kami, they understood that they couldn't get too close. The fiery phoenix appeared, radiating heat, and was swallowed by the water dragon, but the singing of 1,000 birds was heard, and a hurricane gust of wind scattered everything around. Birds. The girls rejoiced, hearing the sound from Chidori's creation. I want that too. Naruto shouted, fascinated by the fight. Further on in the field it became even hotter, the earth was crumbling, a tornado of water and wind, fire, and huge tsunamis were rushing about. Sasuke also watched the fight with all his eyes, he was silent, but of course, like his friend, he wanted to become as strong someday. Guys. Let's get out of here, let's not bother them, Iruka approached the gang. Well, it's so interesting here. The children whined. No, don't interfere, you don't want them to accidentally hurt you, do you? Iruka smiled kindly. No. The rascals responded in chorus, and immediately ran off the site. Iruka himself looked back, looked at the 2 strong shinobi, and decided to himself that with such fighting power, no other nation would dare to attack Konoha. Look, they fell asleep, a quiet whisper reached Sojiro Naruto's ears, he did not open his eyes, he was very interested in what the girls who returned would do. That's true, the second voice answered the first girl. The girls ran away from the boys and Iruka to admire the handsome men. Of course, they were their idols, they even dreamed of marrying them someday. Ino and Sakura approached the sleeping brunette and squatted down to look at his face. Tenten and Hinata had already approached Sojiro, the 2 of them were terribly curious about what his hair felt like. Soft, whispered young Hyuga. Indeed. Despite the fact that the blonde's hair was always disheveled, and seemed prickly and hard, but in reality it was very soft. It needed to be combed more often, as his brunette friend said. Although who's talking? The girls watched their sleeping idols for a while longer and then left. It was boring to just sit there. And then the grinning men woke up and sat up. We are idols to them, Sojiro noted, still smiling. The main thing is that they don't squeal and don't hang on my neck, Sejiro grinned in response, shuddering as he recalled himself during his time at the academy. And mentally he sympathized with Sasuke, who was yet to go through this. Two friends left the battlefield, having brought it into relative order, even using techniques. Today they were so carried away by the battle that they did not notice anything around them. And there was no talk of any new techniques. "I'm going to Itachi's," Sojiro said. "Do you want to come with me?" Sojiro recoiled. "No. What's wrong with you? This is your brother." "That's exactly why I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself and blurt out something wrong." The brunette snapped back. The topic of his brother and communication with him always upset him. "Don't be angry, my friend, I'll go alone," the blonde said conciliatorily, rising from his usual place and stretching sweetly. "Thank you," Sojiro said quietly. He was truly very grateful to his friend for understanding him perfectly, practically from half a word. "Hello, Itachi," Sojiro smiled cheerfully, sitting down on a stone. Uchiha was training in the forest once again, and Fox was always interested in these trainings. "Oh, hello," the brunette smiled, approaching the rock, climbing to its top and sitting down next to the blonde. "How are you doing? Still not tired of ANBU?" asked Sita. "Haha, why?" Itachi was surprised. "Well, you never know, there are some problems," the blonde shrugged, looking at the piece of sky visible in the gaps between the treetops. "Everything is fine, why are you asking?" "Oh, well," Sojiro drawled vaguely, "your brother isn't with you today?" "Oh yeah, he's with Naruto. Look, Sasuke traded you in for the Hokage's son." Itachi laughed softly. "It would be better if he were friends with his peers." "But I'm friends with him too," Sojiro said, offended. "Sometimes Naruto seems older than you," Itachi sighed sadly. "How can you say that?" The blonde was completely offended. Sorry, I was joking. I never thought that Uchiha could joke." Itachi laughed again. "Why do you think so?" "But your clan is all so proud, unapproachable, so," the blonde made an indefinite movement with his right hand to depict what kind of. "That's not true," Itachi laughed again at the pantomime that was unfolding. He had never laughed so much before, not even with his friend Shisui. And this guy, similar to the fourth, charges everyone around him with optimism, always doing stupid things that make you want to laugh nonstop. Sojiro is an incredible person, and his name matches his. Even some of Leaf's enemies became friends, and criminals became reformed. It seemed that Sita was incapable of hatred at all. "Where is your friend?" asked the blonde, glancing sideways at the brunette. "And he and his team went on a mission," Itachi waved his hand. I see," Sojiro drawled, "are you bored?" "For what joy?" Uchiha was surprised. "Just like that." "You're strange," Itachi grinned, ending his break. The blonde glanced briefly at Itachi throwing weapons at the targets, turned around and left. "Hey, Naruto," the little brunette called to the equally little blonde. "Oh, Sasuke. What happened?" Naruto turned around, he was surprised, they just met. "I stole scrolls with techniques from my brother." "Fire ones," Sasuke answered with a mysterious look and a sly smile. "Wow." The already restless blonde became even more inspired, it even seemed that he was glowing like the sun. "Do you think we can learn them?" Namikaze asked as they unrolled the first scroll and ran their eyes over the text. "Of course, yes. I already learned one, my father tested my strength, so I had to." "Show me," Naruto lit up. Sasuke stood up, folded the seals rather quickly, inhaled the air, Katan, Gukkaku no Jutsu, the boy exhaled. Instead of air, a huge ball of fire appeared. "I want that too," Naruto perked up, enchanted by the sight, he had absolutely no intention of giving in to his friend. "Then let's read," Sasuke replied, stopping the technique and sitting back down on the ground. "OSS!" Namikaze exclaimed, immersing himself in his reading. Uchiha chuckled and joined in the reading. "I didn't check the chapter particularly, please write if there are any errors or inconsistencies." And we comment. Equals chapter 8 equals. Night was slowly and surely falling on the village. Shinobi were returning from missions, merchants were closing their shops, and bar and restaurant owners, on the contrary, were opening their doors wider. Sojiro, Itachi, the returned Shisui, and the forcibly dragged Seijiro, gathered to sit in one of the bars, drink a bottle, and chat. Sojiro and Seijiro needed to find out the affairs within the Uchiha clan, and what better way to do this than to get two of its representatives drunk. How was the mission? Itachi asked Shisui after the first shot. Oh, just guarding the merchants. It was boring as hell, they only attacked once. My guys knocked them out right away, I didn't even have time to activate the Sharingan, he waved his hand. Lucky, Sojiro sighed enviously, apparently it's just our karma that always gets into trouble. That's your karma, you idiot, Seijiro told his blonde friend, we're all fine with it. Yes, I am guilty of all the sins, and then I have to clean them up myself, the blonde nodded his head irritably. There, you admitted it yourself, Seijiro leaned back with satisfaction. The two Uchiha giggled, covering their mouths with their hands. Then Kakashi Sr. Jiraiya and Minato looked into the bar. Oh, look, new drinking buddies are coming, Sojiro said mockingly. The Uchiha looked around nervously, they were not used to drinking in such company, after all they were great shinobi. Seijiro nodded to the three ninja, who sat down in the empty seats around the table. Hello, young people, Jiraiya greeted. Healthy, Sojiro nodded. So, girl, we would like a bottle of sake, and a big one, the toad hermit had already turned all his charm on the waitress. In the end, everyone got pretty drunk. Jiraiya dragged Minato home, Kakashi trudged along on his own, purely on autopilot. And Sojiro and Seijiro had to carry the two Uchiha on their backs to the quarter where all the Sharingan shinobi lived, with a few exceptions. The former Uchiha was nervously shaking, looking around in a hunted manner, and acting strangely. He himself was carrying Itachi, no matter how much he resisted communicating with his own brother, he was still worried about him, and now he did not abandon him, he helped. Hey, Shisui, Sojiro hissed, tell me where your home is. There, the drunk Uchiha waved his hand somewhere forward, which immediately fell back like a whip. Damn, the blonde sighed and grabbed Shisui more comfortably. Seijiro quietly explained where Shisui's house should be. And he, with his brother on his back, had to turn right. Seijiro reached the house, walked around it from the garden side, and, taking aim, carefully jumped over the fence. It didn't work out too well, Itachi, drowsy from the alcohol, slid down, and Seijiro stumbled and stretched out to his full height. Brother, you don't know how to drink at all, the brunette hissed, turning to the still sleeping Itachi. He carefully crawled out from under the body and picked it up again. Nissan? A whisper was heard. Damn, Seijiro said quietly and walked towards the voice. Sasuke, why aren't you sleeping? The brunette asked the younger Sasuke. Oh, Seijiro-san, I was waiting for my brother, Uchiha answered in a whisper. Hiko chuckled. Just don't shout in the morning, your brother will have a headache. Why? Sasuke's eyes widened, Seijiro giggled again. Because he'll have a hangover. He doesn't know how to drink at all, so tell him that when he wakes up. Okay, nodded the younger Uchiha. Seijiro carried Itachi into the room, Sasuke quickly unrolled the futon, and Sasuke Sr. carefully lowered his sleeping brother onto the bed, carefully covering him with a blanket. Just don't tell your parents, Seijiro smiled conspiratorially, closing one eye and putting his finger to his lips. Sasuke smiled and nodded as well. After this, Uchiha left the house that was once his. Sojiro carried Shisui home, and did the same as his friend. He jumped over the fence and carried him into the room. He spread out a futon, laid the Uchiha on it, sat down next to him to catch his breath, but Shisui woke up with a buzzing head, a wild dryness in his mouth, and an incredible thirst. He opened his eyes, and something seemed strange to him. Someone was sleeping nearby, quiet snoring could be heard. Shisui sat up and looked with interest and horror to see who it was. It turned out to be Sojiro, sleeping soundly. He was dozing on his back, his vest and jacket unbuttoned, his t-shirt raised up, not hiding the tattoo on his stomach. What is this? Shisui asked quietly, not noticing how he ran his finger along the spiral in the center with interest. Sojiro winced comically, but didn't wake up. Brother! Are you going to get up? Shisui's younger sister, Ohiko, burst into the room. A very piquant picture appeared before the girl. A blond man sprawled on the floor, his uniform unbuttoned, his t-shirt pulled up. And his brother leaning over the blond man and touching his stomach. Ahem, sorry to interrupt, Ohiko coughed, instantly blushing to the roots of her hair. The girl ran out of her brother's room as if monsters were chasing her. She couldn't even imagine that her brother was in that line. Huh? The blonde raised his head when the door slammed loudly. Sojiro looked up at Shisui, who was leaning towards him. Then looked down at his stomach, then back at Shisui. Oh, sorry, Uchiha quickly moved his hand away from the blonde. What happened? Shisui blushed, the situation was embarrassing. Well, I woke up, and there you were sleeping. I noticed a tattoo on your stomach, accidentally ran my hand over it, and at that moment my sister came and saw us. Sojiro imagined this and chuckled. By the way, what are you doing here? I would rather expect to see a naked and beautiful girl in my bed. But I'm lying here. Sojiro laughed even harder. I got you home, but you weren't the only one who was overcome by alcohol. Now Shisui giggled too, all the awkwardness of the situation gone. The blonde tidied up his clothes, ran his hand through his hair, and jumped out the window. And Shisui forgot all about his headache and thirst. Itachi woke up with a hangover. It was a rare occurrence for him, and he didn't know what to do. Groaning, he got up from the bed and tried to focus his vision on something. He succeeded. Sasuke was sitting quietly near the futon. What are you doing here? Seijiro-san brought you home and asked me to tell you that you don't know how to drink at all, the younger Uchiha said simply. Itachi was horrified to imagine himself returning home drunk. Did my parents see me? No. Seijiro-san got through the fence, so neither mom nor dad know. And also, Sasuke moved the tray next to him. On it stood a teapot with brewed tea and a cup. I don't know how to cure a hangover, but I decided to make you some sweet tea, Sasuke said with a serious and slightly apologetic look. Thank you, brother, Itachi thanked, poured himself some tea, and began to drink it in small sips, feeling relief coming. Minato and Jiraiya had it the worst. The son came to wake up his beloved daddy, jumping first on the bed, and then on Minato himself. He rushed into the guest room to do the same to Uncle Jiraiya. And Kushina laughed with her unique laugh at the poor green men, covering their mouths in fear of not being able to contain themselves. But the bloody habanero took pity on them, sent Naruto outside to play with his friends, and fed the men a nutritious soup that helps against hangovers. So, what's this tattoo? Shisui asked as he and Sojiro walked towards the Hokage building. Sojiro had gone home, changed his clothes, and returned for the Uchiha. The blonde was at a loss as to what to say, how to explain. Well, what are you mumbling about? Shisui exploded. Although he was quite kind and sweet, the proud and explosive Uchiha character did not disappear anywhere. Let me explain everything to you some other time, Sojiro wriggled out. This isn't for strangers' ears. Shisui was struck by a guess. You're a... The blonde didn't let him finish, grabbing him tightly by the shoulders with one hand and gagging him with the other. I said, not for strangers' ears. Now Sojiro had transformed, he was serious, and, it seemed, even angry. He looked impressive and menacing. Sorry, Uchiha exhaled when the blonde let him go. Minato, how are you feeling? Sojiro asked, entering the fourth's office. The frowning look from under his brows said that he was not feeling well. Why did you come here? Minato asked, looking just as sullen. What do you mean, why? Sojiro pretended to throw up his hands, take on a mission. Minato winced, wondering if there was anything for the blonde. Oh. There was a scroll from the Kazekage somewhere here, he asked Konoha for help. Gaara? Sojiro raised his eyebrows in a way that seemed a little too understanding. How did you guess? Just like that. And what should we do with it? The Kazekage says that Gaara cannot handle his bijou and is becoming unbalanced and mentally unstable. Naruto turned away. Yes, he was Naruto now. Before his eyes flashed that same unbalanced and mentally unstable killer, as he was during the Chunin exam. How they fought afterwards, how Gaara became normal, how he helped bring Sasuke back to Konoha. He remembered how Sakura said that Gaara had become Kazekage. Naruto still remembers the mixture of feelings, joy, and even pride for Gaara. And envy, though bright, and resentment that the blonde himself was still a genin. The capture of Akatsuki's friend, the pursuit of them, the furious rage at that blonde demolition man who so brazenly mocked the corpse. The sad joy that Gaara was saved, but Chiyo's grandmother died. War. All this flashed before his eyes at great speed, and tears still appeared in the blonde's eyes. For him, there was no longer that Gaara, there was a small confused boy. So we need to teach Gaara control over himself? Yes, Minato nodded. He will help his friend, he will help him again, it cannot be otherwise. Naruto disappeared through the window. Chapter 9. A traveler entered the passage between the defensive fortifications. The face was not visible due to the hood of the cloak. A sandstorm had recently passed through the desert. "Hello, who are you? What is the purpose of your visit?" asked the shinobi guard who jumped down from above. "Sita Sojiro, chunin of the village hidden in the leaves, I have come at the request of the Lord Kazekage," the traveler answered, throwing off his hood. The shinobi shook his wheat-colored hair, his forehead protector glinting in the rising sun. "Please follow me," the guard bowed. The leaf and sand shinobi wandered through the streets. Sojiro wondered how anyone could live here, it was all made of sand. The last time he was here, he hadn't been able to look around. It was pretty nice though, and Sojiro hoped it wasn't as hot as the desert. "This way, please." The guard opened the door to the Kazekage building and bowed again. "You're on the 3rd floor, the Kazekage's office is there." The blonde nodded and went inside. Thank God the stairs were right in front of the doors, otherwise you'd have to look for them. Sojiro stood up and looked around. Again, he didn't have time to do this the last time he was here. Between the 2nd and 3rd floors, the blonde saw him. Gaara sat alone on the steps, so small and seemingly so defenseless. "Hello," Sojiro came up and leaned towards the baby. He raised his soft green eyes and stared at the speaker. "Why are you sitting here alone? Where are your friends?" The blonde smiled and tilted his head to the side. He asked this, wanting to establish contact with Gaara, otherwise it would be very difficult. "I don't have any friends," little Gaara answered in a dull, quiet voice. "Everyone has friends. But I don't have them." Nothing seemed to have changed, neither in his voice nor in his facial expression, but it seemed that he said it with offense. "Do you want me to be your friend?" Naruto was still smiling. "No, first you will be friends with me, and then you will try to kill me. I don't want that." "It's better if I kill you first." Gaara panicked and moved away from the man. "Silly, I won't kill you even if I give such an order, you're just a child." Naruto stretched out his hand and wanted to ruffle his hair, but the child recoiled from him and stared at the blonde in disbelief. "I don't believe it." He narrowed his eyes now. "You'll see, I'm your new mentor, if of course your father gives permission," Naruto answered, smiling again. A shadow of a smile flitted across Gaara's face. He liked the man, he didn't feel waves of hatred from him like the others, on the contrary, he seemed to warm him with kindness. "Let's go." Naruto became Sojiro again and tried to keep up his mask. The main thing was not to forget himself and not blurt out anything unnecessary. The blonde reached out his hand again, and this time Gaara grabbed it. The man's palms were hot, and the boy held on even tighter. Sojiro lifted the boy to his feet and took him in his arms. So they entered the Kazekage's office. "Hello, Lord Kazekage. I am Sita Sojiro from Konoha, the 4th Hokage sent me," the blonde said, nodding his head. He couldn't bow, Gaara was in his arms. "I see." The man, who looked very much like the adult Gaara, put the report sheets aside. "I am the 4th Kazekage, Sakin, and Gaara's father." The red-haired man nodded towards the child Sojiro was holding in his arms. "Namike-sama, I hope, told you about your mission?" "Of course. To become Gaara's mentor." He didn't quite agree with the way the question was put. "Okay. I need Gaara to learn how to control Shikaku's power." "I don't promise anything, it's very difficult to become friends with a Biju," Sojiro muttered thoughtfully, remembering his Kurama, how they fought each other for 3 years, and only after that became friends. Become friends? The Kazekage was surprised. "That's impossible." "Anything is possible in this world," Sojiro raised his head proudly. "As you say. I need Gaara to become a normal shinobi. If he loses his temper and kills someone again, I'll have to kill him myself. The Kazekage didn't care that Gaara himself could hear him. Sakin-san, I'm going to hit you now, Sojiro warned. What do you allow yourself to do? I do not accept such methods. You yourself do not know what it is like to be a Jinchuriki, what it is like to live with a demon inside. I will not allow Gaara to be raised in such harsh conditions. I will raise him as I see fit. If you do not agree, I will simply take him from here, and not a single shinobi of yours will interfere with me, will not be able to. Sojiro brought his eyebrows together. No, Naruto again. Uzumaki remembered the ruined destinies, his own, Gaara's, bees. And he didn't start changing history so that someone would suffer again. Are you threatening? Sakin narrowed his eyes. This could escalate into a war between leaf and sand. I once swore on the corpses of people dear to me that I would rid this world of hatred. And I will not allow another war to start, and I will definitely not contribute to the emergence of another murderer. The Kazekage and Sojiro looked at each other. Sakin was shocked. No one had ever gone against his decisions. And this Konoha guy immediately declared that he would not listen to orders if they diverged from his ninja way. Gaara sat in the arms of his new mentor and hid, afraid to sigh a little louder. He was still small and did not understand everything, but the tone in which the man said all this to his father's face, behind him, as behind a stone wall, he would protect and fulfill all his promises. And Gaara believed him. I think we have an agreement. Sojiro looked straight at the Kazekage, nodded and left. Sojiro-sama, you are incredible, Gaara said in a quiet voice. I told you I won't kill you, the man smiled softly, and no suffixes, just call me Sojiro. But. No buts, I don't like all this currying favor. Gaara smiled, so unusually. But he wanted to laugh out loud, he wanted to run aimlessly, laugh and fall into such warm and soft sand. The desire of a child, a normal child. Are you already being trained in the art of ninja? Sojiro asked as he walked to his new home. As soon as the blonde left the Kazekage building, Sand caught up with him and handed him a message from the Lord. It contained the address of the house and wishes for Gaara to begin training as soon as possible, as well as Temari and Kankuro. The blonde just sighed. The Kazekage found someone to push his kids onto. They're afraid, and I don't need that, Gaara answered. No, that won't do, smiled Sojiro. You know, when I was a child I hated studying, I was lazy, I skipped classes. And I was the worst student, I passed the Genin exam only on the third try. You don't want to be like that, do you? But you are strong now, the boy was surprised. Of course, but I achieved this through hard training and studies I didn't like anyway. And anyway, you never know what will happen in the future. The worst student can become the strongest shinobi in the village, and the best student and genius can become a heartless killer who has sunk to the very bottom. Gaara bowed his head, trying to understand what his mentor was talking about. It's okay, you'll understand later, when you grow up a little, Sojiro smiled and ruffled Gaara's hair. Finally, they approached the house. Near it, Kankuro and Temari were already sitting on the steps. So you're our new teacher? You don't look very strong, Kankuro drawled, looking at the man approaching them. Appearances can be deceiving. Especially with a shinobi, the man retorted, I'm Sojiro. Kankuro. Temari. So we met. Seijiro was now running away from the Uchiha's persistent friends. Both Itachi and Shursui were simply eager to talk to him. One because Sojiro promised to explain where he got the seal on his stomach from, and Itachi remembered that Seijiro called him brother and wanted to know if he misheard it. Seijiro sighed and shook his head to the side, jumping onto a tree branch and running away from the village. Shursui and Itachi followed him, they were very interested in such behavior. Finally Seijiro stopped, near some river, already with a normal step he went to the waterfall. The Valley of the End. The brunette walked up to the statue of Hashirama. He felt such a sense of disgust towards Madara that he didn't want to sit on his head. It would be better not to see him at all. And it would be even better not to know him at all. Hiko took a deep breath, exhaled, activated his Sharingan, and turned to face the two Uchiha. Sharingan? Where? Since birth. I am Uchiha Sasuke. My brother? Itachi's eyes widened in surprise and he stared intently at the man standing in front of him. Indeed, in about 2 decades, little Sasuke will be like this. and Shursui was eager for more. I am 22 now. 6 years ago, do you remember how we came to the village? Yes, Itachi nodded. He remembered how he watched them. And he remembered that he seemed to have seen Seijiro's Sharingan. And it wasn't just an illusion, he really did have it. We got here from the future, it is unknown how, in the heat of battle we did not notice. The four of us fought with a very strong opponent, so we did not notice. And what about the future? Shursui asked cautiously. Bad. But the good thing is that we won't let such a future happen. We? It's you, Sasuke, and who are the others? Itachi asked slowly. My friend, Naruto Uzumaki. Uzumaki? Why not Namikaze? Shursui raised his eyebrows. Because on his birthday, there was an attack by Kyuubi on the village. Wait, the fox didn't attack. It wasn't you who attacked, but I'm talking about our past. We were attacked by the fox, many shinobi died then, including the previous Jinchuriki, Kushina Uzumaki, and the fourth Hokage. The last two, at the cost of their lives, sealed the bijou in their son. Were they supposed to die? Itachi was horrified, he already had a bad feeling. Yes. We prevented it. And Naruto grew up an orphan, and did not know about his parents. The third hid all the information about the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed. And the remaining two? Itachi asked, the bad feeling still lingering. It's obvious, Sasuke. Seijiro chuckled, Hatake Kakashi and Might Guy. Indeed, muttered Shursui, and what happened to me and Itachi? You are changing history, so it is probably okay to tell. Seijiro looked guiltily at Itachi, who shuddered, that's it. Shursui, Itachi killed you, at your own request. And I killed Itachi, you wanted it that way yourself. At the end of the sentence the brunette looked at his brother. Why? Itachi was horrified. The Uchiha were preparing a rebellion, and you, Itachi, were ordered to exterminate the entire clan. But you left me, thinking that I would become your killer. You carried out the order and went into a criminal organization. And then I killed you. Nightmare. Shursui and Itachi exclaimed together, Seijiro only nodded. We won't allow that. In principle, that's why Sojiro talked to you, to find out when the rebellion would start to brew. Although, knowing him, he talked to you because he liked you, he combined business with pleasure. Seijiro chuckled again. If anything happens, we'll let you know. Shursui nodded seriously, he didn't want the clan to be destroyed, no matter how snobby they were. Well, about the tattoo, I think it's clear now. So now we have two Kyuubi in the village? Shursui raised his eyebrows, Seijiro nodded. Great. By the way, how did you find out about it? Sasuke asked, it's not that easy to see. Naruto doesn't even undress during training anymore, so that no one accidentally sees the seal. Shursui blushed, the situation was embarrassing again. How to tell it to two guys? Well, after our drinking bout, he stayed with me, so he saw it, Shursui answered anyway. What were you doing? Itachi's eyebrow twitched, and his lips trembled with suppressed laughter. Idiot. Shursui snapped, his shirt just got pulled up while he was sleeping. Itachi and Seijiro laughed anyway, and Shursui blushed even more. Oh, come on, he pouted, got up from the statue and walked towards the village. The two brothers were still laughing, but then they calmed down and followed Shursui to the village. Chapter 10. Sojiro woke up the next day much earlier than his alarm clock. Today is his first training session with his new students. He knows what to teach Gaara and Temari, but he simply couldn't imagine Kankuro as a future puppeteer. Although you still have to start from the basics, at least as a mentor you can tell them something. The blonde began to dress slowly, still in thought. What exactly should he tell the kids? How to find mutual understanding with Gaara and help him? They didn't let him finish his thought. Apparently, the Kazekage's children have some privileges, otherwise how can one explain that all three of them brazenly barged into his kitchen? Good morning, sensei. They shouted in chorus. Sojiro's right eyebrow twitched. Hi. But he smiled with effort, have you already had breakfast? Or did you come running as soon as you woke up? From the embarrassed faces he realized it was the second option. There was no normal food, there was, quite obviously, ramen. What can you do with you? Sojiro sighed and reached into his unpacked backpack in search of food. Ramen? Kankuro asked, surprised, looking at the cups of noodles. Well, I just got here, and I don't know how long I'll stay. Are you against ramen? Sojiro asked with a childish resentment in his eyes. Here Gaara, with his paws made of sand, forced his sister and brother to bow their heads. They're asking for forgiveness, Sojiro, he smiled slyly. Temari and Kankuro, who wanted to be indignant, froze with their mouths open. Gaara hadn't smiled for a long time, so the brother and sister nodded their heads diligently, showing that they weren't at all against ramen, and were asking for forgiveness for their unworthy behavior. The blonde laughed and ruffled everyone's hair. Gaara was simply glowing, he liked his new mentor more and more. The open, simple attitude simply captivated the little Jinchuriki. He didn't want to hurt people anymore, he wanted to give them warmth and joy like this man. Where's your training ground here? Sojiro asked when they had all eaten and left the house for the street. Let's go, Gaara on one side, Temari on the other, grabbed their mentor's hands and pulled him in the right direction. Kankuro walked proudly ahead of everyone. The training ground was huge, and like everything around it was a desert. So, Sojiro began, walking past the three relatives who had sat down in a row. Leave the boring theory for other teachers. Theory won't help in a real fight, unless it's a strategy, of course. I'm a practical man, and that's what I'll demand of you. The kids nodded seriously and fidgeted on the sand in anticipation of the demonstration. You know, the most necessary thing for a ninja is chakra. Almost everything is tied to it. The kids nodded again. For normal techniques, you simply gather the required amount of chakra, form seals, and receive the technique. There are 5 varieties of normal chakra, obtained from mixing spiritual and physical energy. The Sandmen nodded again, they had been told this before. These varieties are called elements of chakra. There are 5 main ones, Sojiro walked in front of the children and told them. Now he took a couple of steps back and stopped. For example, fire. The mentor folded his seals and exhaled a huge fireball high into the sky. Wind. The man created a small whirlwind that swept across the entire training ground at great speed. Unfortunately, I can't show lightning. The next element is earth. Where Sojiro stood and the children sat. A square pillar rose from the ground. The teacher jumped back down onto the sand. Water. The seals were quickly folded again and a wave of water rushed through. The children watched from above as a powerful stream of water swirled around their earthen pillar. A minute later, there is no water again, only the puddles around remind us of it. The sandpipers jumped down. But you know 4 elements. Kankuro exclaimed, he was told that a jonin can learn only 3, and the third is optional. Yes, Sojiro nodded. Then you are very strong, Temari exhaled, also impressed by the demonstration. There is such a thing, the mentor answered smiling, these were the elements. Also, chakra can be used to control puppets, which Sand often uses. Yes. I will become a puppeteer someday. The oldest boy proudly stuck out his chest. You will be one of the best, Sojiro nodded. All ninja techniques are divided into 3 types. Genjutsu, ninjutsu, and taijutsu. You will have to hand them over to me someday, the mentor smiled again. Hi. The students answered in chorus. Then today we have physical development training and training in using chakra. The students and their instructor began to run, jump, do push-ups, and squats. And after the warm-up, they began to learn to concentrate chakra in their hands and feet. Sparring began. Sojiro acted as a punching bag, and the children tried to hit him, using chakra when hitting. The day flew by unnoticed, and Gaara, Kankuro and Temari were so exhausted today that they fell asleep where they sat down to rest. The fair-haired man sighed, looking at his students, they are great, they grasp everything on the fly. Sojiro bit the pad of his thumb, made seals, and summoning technique. A huge toad appeared, dressed in a simply huge, open kimono. A pipe was in his lips, and a sword hung behind his back. Minato. Where did you call me? The toad roared, eh? It wasn't Minato standing in front of the amphibian, although the hairstyle and face were similar. "Who are you?" Toad Boss was surprised that he could be summoned without signing a contract. The blonde climbed onto the toad's head. "Naruto Uzumaki, Minato's son, and I came here from the future, and there we had a contract," the man said quietly. I see. Here, my name is Sita Sojiro. Gamabunta, I wanted to ask you to deliver those 3 children to my house." "Oh, you're all like that, Shinobi," Toad Boss grumbled. "You mean Jiraiya?" Sojiro chuckled. "Who else?" Using me as a racehorse, Gamabunta continued to grumble as he raised the sleeping Sandman and handed them to the blonde. "I'm sorry." "Oh well. Just don't call me again for such nonsense." "I won't," Sojiro smiled. Little Naruto was doing the same thing today. His father taught him, which Naruto himself was extremely happy about. There were so many kids at this training that Minato felt embarrassed and sympathized with Irika. How does a Chunin cope with them? Although now this whole gang sat quietly and caught every word of their Hokage. Namikaze-sensei spoke very interestingly and, most importantly, informatively. Children learned about cloning and replacement. And everyone did even worse than Naruto from the future, but this is only the beginning. They will still learn, they have their whole life ahead of them. And Itachi and Shursui spent this evening again in the company of, as it turned out, Uchiha Sasuke. Now he has stopped being afraid to give himself away, he has already done it. It became much easier. Itachi took a rather philosophical attitude towards the fact that he was friends with an adult copy of his little brother, and he also took the situation that was told calmly. Shursui was just worried, he didn't want the whole clan to die, that's for sure. And he just prayed to all the existing gods that they wouldn't allow the same situation to develop as with Sasuke Sr., and there's nothing to panic about, they all together definitely won't allow it to happen again. "Come on, Shursui, don't worry," Itachi patted his friend on the shoulder. "I'm not worried," he snapped, although Itachi's words made him feel much better. I wanted to laugh, loudly and sonorously. He has a family, friends. What is he afraid of? We can already say that bedtime stories? Scary stories for children? Everything will be fine. Chapter 11. A couple of days later, Itachi, Shursui and Sejiro were sent on a mission to the Land of Lightning. They will have to hand over the peace treaty agreement to the Raikage, and then lead the delegation from Cloud to Konoha. If you fly on a bird, it will take you 4 days to get to Kumo. If you walk, it will take you 7. That's why all 3 Uchiha grumbled almost identically as they walked along the road, and after all, they were only walking for the first day, what would happen next? Sejiro was used to such transitions. He wandered from one Orochimaru base to another. When he remembers it, he immediately gets the shivers. And how did he survive there for 3 years? Itachi is generally from ANBU, he is not supposed to show emotions, but here everyone was his own, so he quietly cursed, stumbling over another route. Shursui was probably the most cheerful right now. He was telling stories about his genin while he was walking. The teenagers he got were cheerful, always doing something, well, you could say, 3 Narutos at once. So the 2 brothers secretly pitied Shursui, but outwardly they laughed and inserted mocking remarks. And Naruto always did something like that. He always gets himself into trouble, and then he drags us into it, Sejiro said with a nostalgic smile. Itachi and Shursui looked at the man with interest. We're basically eternal rivals. At the very beginning of our becoming genin, Kakashi showed us how to walk on trees without hands. The boys chuckled, simply unable to imagine how these 2 strong ninjas could not do such nonsense. Sakura climbed up very quickly and went to the customer's house. Kakashi left after her. And Naruto and I still couldn't do it. Until the morning we competed who would climb higher. And? Itachi asked. Of course, we climbed to the very top together. We always did everything together. Why do you say that as if it can't be returned? In my opinion, you're still inseparable, Shursui noted. I wanted to take revenge on my brother and saw nothing but revenge. I decided to go to Orochimaru for the power that would help me kill Itachi, Sejiro continued speaking sadly. Shisui and Itachi were silent. They could only guess how hard it was for Naruto, Sasuke, Itachi, and all the people from that future. And this idiot always considered me a friend. He didn't want to kill me, he wanted to bring me back to the village. He tried to prove that my revenge was empty. And he was completely right. I killed my brother, but I didn't feel relief and joy from achieving my goal, but the pain of loss. And then Madara in the mask told me that Itachi was actually following orders. They were silent. But Naruto, at every meeting, shouted that he would return me to Konoha, and that I was his friend. And he did return me, Sasuke smiled, although Konoha turned out to be a little different. Itachi and Shisui also smiled. It was all sad, but it was good that this story was already over. To ease the tension, Seijiro began to tell even funnier stories from their training with Kakashi. Now all the Uchiha could do was laugh. The story of Naruto Uzumaki's adventures was simply incredible. There was still a long way to go, and Seijiro hoped that there would be enough stories to last until the end. Naruto Namikaze and Sasuke Uchiha were up to mischief again. Sasuke's brother had gone on a mission, and all of his scrolls with any techniques were within reach. So, both boys with the most honest eyes came to ask Naruto's mother to let him spend the night with Sasuke. Kushina didn't notice anything and decided to agree. She herself decided to invite Makoto to her place, and send Minato to the house of Raidon and Aoshi, although their names didn't really catch on. That's what they were called in the family circle of Kakashi and Guy. So Kushina let them go, and the happy best friends went to Sasuke's house. Well, what? Let's go? Naruto asked, winking conspiratorially. Small and very funny Sasuke, making a serious face, nodded with an important look. The two boys quietly left the room and carefully made their way into Itachi's room. It was light and very neat. Quite free. A dark wood wardrobe, a table of the same color, a wall-sized bookcase with books and scrolls. The latter was what interested the two friends. Sasuke carefully opened the glass door. Naruto came up and carefully began to sort through the books, taking them out and quickly looking through them. Itachi had not only books with techniques here, but also historical ones, on the history of the great clans, Rikudo Sannin, the land of fire and Konoha, and other countries. The blonde put aside all the books that seemed interesting to him. Sasuke was looking through the scrolls, which contained not only simple techniques, but even A and S class ones. The eyes of the younger Uchiha simply lit up when he read the names of all these techniques. Everything that his greedy hands could reach was pulled out of the closet. Naruto had already settled down near the table. On the tabletop next to him stood several neat stacks of books. Sasuke joined his friend. He read all the explanations of the techniques and wrote down notes. They sat like that all night, and Fugaku naively assumed that the children were sleeping peacefully in Sasuke's room. Sojiro continued training the Sandmen. The kids are really little geniuses, they learn very quickly. It's a pity that their chakra control is not very good yet, but they are trying. A new contract has been concluded with Gamabunta. Sakin has not yet demanded a report, and contact has been established with Gaara. Everything was great, but the blonde was quite lonely. And sad, too. Here, in relative inaction, he began to be overcome by heavy thoughts. Sojiro started worrying about all this great history-changing stuff again. The what-if stage of fear began. In the evenings, the Sannin of the Leaf Village would go outside, climb onto the roof, like Gaara once did, and sit, look at the moon and think. With him, the little one, everything is fine, his whole family is alive. Ero-sanin is alive too. Right now, everything was pretty good, but his heart was quietly whispering that the Uchiha might already be planning a coup. This sent shivers down Seth's spine. He was afraid of it to the point of shaking in his knees. He was nervous and worried. Because of this, sometimes everything fell out of his hands. But Uchiha is not the only problem that will come across on the path of the changers of history. Although, why change everything? The main thing is to change the main terrible events, and then you can lay off these rather problematic responsibilities and take care of yourself. What is he talking about? What should he do? He doesn't have a girlfriend. Horrible. He has never had a girlfriend. You're an idiot, Naruto Uzumaki. You've been running after Sasuke for so many years that you've completely forgotten about such a pleasant part of the world as love. Although it's not only Sasuke who is to blame, but also global problems like Akatsuki, Orochimaru, and the war. He urgently needed to find himself a girlfriend, so Gyro decided, jumping off the roof and heading back to his small apartment. The blonde, like Shursui a few days ago, thought that everything would work out for them. Everything would be fine, there would be no war and so many deaths. They have to cope, apparently that's why they came here. If only they knew how. Kushina called not only Makoto, but also other mothers of children. The mothers of Hinata, Chuji, Aino, Sakura, and Shikamaru gathered at the 4th Hokage's house. The women drank light wine and gossiped. They shared rumors and told funny stories about their children or husbands. Then they began to feel nostalgic. Each told her own love story, and considering that they had all known each other for quite a long time, they began to recall very old stories. Like what Kushina was like at the academy, or how Makoto often quarreled with Shizuka, Sakura's mother. The women also didn't sleep all night, they hadn't been planning to do this for a long time. At first they all just jumped into marriage, and then they had children. What's rather strange is that almost all of them are not only the same age, but were almost born at the same time. The mothers quietly wondered if their children would continue their tradition. They had all grown up and studied together. Oh, there were so many good things, it's so nice to remember. When Minato returned home, he stood leaning against the door frame of the living room for about 20 minutes, admiring his sleeping wife. Still, he is incredibly glad that he fell in love with her. Kushina is so passionate, impulsive, she always needs to do something, she never sits in one place. But in reality she is vulnerable and very tender. It would be a sin not to love such a multifaceted person. Minato walked quietly into the room, picked up his wife and carried her upstairs to their bedroom. She wouldn't be sleeping for long, and who knows, maybe Naruto would have a little brother or sister. Chapter 12 So another year passed. Naruto was still having fun with his friends. No one found out about their study of techniques, although Itachi suspected. Because although the room was in order upon returning from the mission, the bookcase made him wary. The eldest of the brothers looked through the books and realized that they were not in the order in which they were laid out. Of course he suspected Sasuke, but what could he say? A child's interest in knowledge should be encouraged, not punished, so he kept quiet. The mission went so. They got to Kumo normally, everything was fine there, but in Konoha, not so much. The Cloud Shinobi wanted to master the Hyuga Byakugan, and tried to capture Hayashi, the head of the clan. But instead of him, Hizashi, his twin brother, was captured and was killed. It all ended in tragedy, which strained the relationship between Cloud and Leaf. And now diplomats from both villages were trying to re-establish contact. Minato was torn between home and work. Kushina was indeed pregnant, and she wasn't the only one. Quite a few mothers were expecting second or even third children. Makoto, Shizuka, Hataru, Hinata's mother, and several other women. The fathers clutched their heads, asking where the other children were. They had more than enough of the current ones. But the Kunoichi were no match for the stern women, so all the fathers humbly waited for more children to be born. Uzumaki, having learned that his mother was going to give birth again, came to the 4th Kazekage. Sakin-san, I have to return to Konoha for a while, the blonde stated the purpose of his visit. I allow it, but not more than 2 months. And so I will have to find other teachers for my children, answered the Kazekage. Their relationship had more or less leveled out over the year, and they now communicated with cold politeness. Although Sakin couldn't help but admit that Seth Sojiro was right, because he saw what Gaara had become, more sociable and lively. Kankuro and Temari had also changed slightly, and had become noticeably stronger. If they had been like that before Gaara was born, they could have easily laid claim to being a vessel for the Biju. But Sakin tried to think less about it, because he had been shown that a Jinchuriki cannot be treated only as a weapon of the village. He really didn't want a repeat of the story with Gaara, who knows what another Jinchuriki could have become. I can take them with me. They are my students, suggested Sojiro, who wanted to do so right away, and it wouldn't hurt the guys to see a little bit of the world. Besides, traveling is fun. Well, that would be the best way out, the Kazekage nodded. Sojiro bowed and left the office. He had to hurry and make his little students happy. The man quickly, with a dancing gait, walked along the deserted corridors of the residence and went out onto the street, immediately jumping onto the canopy of some building, from there onto a lamp post, and then onto the roof, and jumping from one to another, he reached his apartment. For some reason, it so happened that the sandy ones always came to his house. And now the blonde was waiting for their arrival. Preparing dinner for everyone, humming something under his breath. The man was genuinely happy for his father and mother. He was glad that his little version had parents, and would even have a little brother. Not alone, that's what Sojiro thought about his family, which was no longer his. Even though he was practically a stranger to them all, they accepted him as their own. They knew that he was their adult son, but they didn't perceive him as such. Rather, as Sojiro himself once said, he was like an uncle to little Naruto. Which was relatively close to the truth, due to his strong resemblance to Minato Namake's. Shinobi aren't that interested in that. Well, there are people who are similar to each other. It's not for nothing that they say that every person may have a twin. The children arrived, as always unceremoniously tumbling into the apartment and going straight into the kitchen. Sojiro didn't tell them anything, he understood them perfectly. All these rules of etiquette, they should be observed in public, not at home. Home is home, the soul should rest here. This is approximately the rule that the man was guided by all his conscious life. The fair-haired man placed plates of food in front of the children, who were hungry after their exhausting morning training. Naruto's former boyfriend got them hooked on ramen. Explaining, or rather showing, all the charm of this masterpiece of culinary thought. The sandy ones did appreciate it, and agreed that it was tasty and nutritious, but not very healthy. But it was perfect for replenishing lost energy. And they ate the noodles without question. But there was no ramen on the table now, Sojiro had already gotten used to eating other dishes. Therefore, there was a variety of different dishes on the table. The little shinobi pounced on the lunch, thanking their mentor for the food in a crumpled manner. Afterwards, all that could be heard was the clatter of spoons and chopsticks, and the clink of dishes. When everything was eaten, and the children were smiling with satisfaction, Sojiro made tea for everyone. Now we can talk. Do you know that I'm returning to Konoha soon? The man decided to upset his students a little. What? Really? They exclaimed, immediately becoming sad. Gaara seemed the saddest. He had become so attached to his mentor that he did not want to part, especially so soon. Yes, my brother's wife is due to give birth again soon, Sojiro continued calmly. That's great, Kankuro nodded reservedly, as the oldest and most knowledgeable. True. That's why I need to go back. And, the blonde paused, you'll come with me. The scream that followed deafened the poor man, and the three children who rushed at him with hugs knocked all the air out of his lungs. Hooray! We're going to Konoha! Temari and Gaara shouted in unison. Sita just smiled, how happy he was to see the smiles on the faces of these children. Almost as happy as he was to see the smiles of little Naruto, Sasuke, and their gang. Konoha was in an uproar. The sudden birth rate spike had thrown the village into chaos. Women seemed to be competing to see who would have the most children, and the first. This time Kushina was due to give birth first, and very soon. She and Minato were waiting for Sojiro to come to the village. They had already learned the hard way that childbirth was dangerous for a Jinchuriki, and there might be another smart guy who wanted to steal the nine tails. So it wouldn't hurt to have some backup. Sojiro himself didn't keep us waiting long. After sending him a letter, he came 3 days later. Exactly. What's very surprising is that it takes only 3 days to walk as a normal shinobi, and you still have to get ready, you can spend a whole day on that. And the fact that the young man also brought his children with him was absolutely terrifying. How did he manage to get there so quickly? Although, having watched the guys for a while, one could have guessed. They were very active, simply energetic. And immediately upon arrival, we had a fight with Sasuke. Little Uchiha, his older brother, and 2 of his brother's friends came out to meet Sojiro. He immediately started chatting with the adults, and the children decided their own affairs. But as soon as they fought, they made up. They were children. We haven't seen each other for a long time, Sejiro said, feeling touched and hugging his friend tightly. Yes, I'm back, Sojiro responded with an equally strong hug. He shook hands with the two Uchiha, his friends. "How are you doing here without me?" the fair-haired man asked cheerfully. "What a nightmare." Itachi howled, "Not only do I have a little brother, but now I'll have a little sister too." The others just laughed at the guy's expressive remark. "Don't worry, you survived Sasuke, you'll survive your sister too." Uchiha Shisui patted his friend on the shoulder, "Trust my experience." "Oh, come on," Itachi shook off his hand with a movement of his shoulder. "And what kind of children are you with?" asked Shisui, noticing that Sand and Sasuke were already whispering about something top secret. "Ah, Gaara, Kankuro and Temari." Sojiro waved his hand, also looking at his charges, and made sure that everything was okay with them. "It's for them that I'm now on a mission in Sand." "Not bad, kids," Sejiro said, looking the boys over with a searching look. No, the former Sasuke Uchiha remembered them perfectly well, and was glad that they were not the same as they were at that memorable exam. Rather, the Sand ones reminded them of themselves, after meeting Naruto, and how he saw them at the meeting of the 5 Kage. And Sejiro knew perfectly well whose influence it was, he didn't know yet. He had already observed Uzumaki's mystical ability to change people's hearts so many times that he had lost count. And the children were already chatting about the techniques they knew. Gaara bragged to Sasuke that their teacher had mastered the 4 elements, that he was very strong. Little Uchiha indignantly replied that his teacher was actually the Hokage. To which Gaara trumped that he himself was the son of the Kazekage. Sasuke only snorted, his best friend was also the son of the Kage, that wouldn't surprise him. But the mood of children is changeable like the wind, and they quickly forgot about the conflict and began to really tell what techniques they knew. And it was still unknown what stopped everyone from demonstrating. Certainly not the adults standing nearby. Turning to the men, the children encountered scrutinizing glances. The feeling was not pleasant. As if they were goods on display, the men seemed to be estimating whether they were strong, whether the children would become something worthwhile, and in general. Sasuke just curled his lips in displeasure and decided to go and pester his brother. It's good that he treats all of the younger boys' antics with boundless patience, unlike those same parents. And the elders, having chatted enough, took the kids and primly headed to the house of the 4 Beasts team. Sojiro somehow did not want to bother Minato and Kushina with 3 more children, when they themselves had 1 fidget, and soon there would be a second. They would have no time for them. The beasts, or more precisely the dog and the turtle, or Raidon and Aoshi, had already left that house, moving into their own apartments in the neighboring house. So Sojiro and Sejiro now lived in that house alone. The 2 friends took him to the Peshchenik's house, fed him, showed him a place to sleep, explained everything, and sent him out for a walk. They are still children, but smart children, they won't get lost. And in case of danger they have Gaara, who will tear everyone apart for his relatives, in the literal sense of the word. Sojiro himself, having dropped his bulky backpack in the hallway, quickly ran off in the direction of his parents' house. And Kankuro, Temari, and Gaara went to scout the territory and search for that boy. While the adults were chatting, they managed to understand that Uchiha Sasuke is one of the main fidgets, and you can have a lot of fun with him while the mentor is busy. 3 guys calmly walked out into the street, looked around, and went to the right, just like that. Sasuke and his friend, who looked quite similar to Sojiro, found them themselves. "Hello, my name is Naruto Namikaze," the boy introduced himself, shaking his mane of blonde hair and smiling sweetly. In response, the Sandmen introduced themselves, and once the introductions were made, they all went together to the gathering place of the Konoha children. The gang would meet in one of the parks, on a playground. That was their brain center, so to speak, where they would develop strategies for pranks. The new acquaintances got to know this motley company, and they appreciated them. There were girls here, smart and resourceful, very successfully using the weaknesses of their gender, turning them into strength, for the benefit of their company. Pink-haired and green-eyed Sakura, blonde with gray eyes Ino, a girl from the Hyuga clan Hinata, and a brown-haired girl with brown eyes Tenten. The boys were interesting too. One was very smart, the main strategist here. Without his participation, even remotely, not a single prank would pass, Nara Shikamaru. A brunette with a funny ponytail on the back of his head and a bored expression on his face. Temari, considered a strategist in the Sand Company, became interested in him. There was also a guy with a puppy, Kiba, a funny fat guy, Chuji, a serious boy from the Hyuga clan, Niji, a secretive guy in dark glasses, Shino, another funny boy, dark-haired with very pale skin, you can't even tell that he is sitting in the sun, Sai. The gang of guys also liked the guests from the sand, especially since Gaara reminded everyone very much of Naruto, just as energetic and kind. Having gotten to know each other and chatted, the guys set about another grand prank in honor of the guests. Sojiro walked quickly through Konoha, not even on the roofs, but just on the ground. The Namikaze house greeted him with silence. It was understandable, Naruto was running outside and Minato was working. "Hello, Kushina," the man greeted loudly, walking from the long corridor into the kitchen, where the red-haired beauty, the fourth Hokage's wife, was most likely. "Oh, Naruto. You came," exclaimed a woman sitting on a chair and reading a large book. In front of her on the table there was a vase of fruit and a tray of tea. Kushina, when no one could hear them, called her son from the future by his real name. She said that it was not in vain that she chose him, so that he could hide his name, let at least sometimes someone call the blonde that. Naruto was only flattered by this, all his life he dreamed of hearing his mother's voice calling him by name. "How are you?" he asked, sitting down on a chair in front of the woman. "Maybe you need something?" "No, thank you. I'm fine, just a little heavy." "You were lighter," Kushina answered with a smile. Sojiro just laughed and blushed with flattery. It was nice to have living parents after all. "How are things going here?" "I haven't been to the village for so long," the fair-haired man sighed sadly. "Everything is fine. Mikoto, here, is also pregnant." "I know," Itachi already managed to complain, Sojiro said, still smiling. Kushina giggled and began to tell the story of what had happened here during the entire year of Naruto's absence from the future, the already changed future. The story continued until the evening, and was interrupted only when Minato came home. "Where is Naruto?" he asked, entering the kitchen and finding no trace of his little son's presence in the house. "He hasn't arrived yet?" Sojiro was surprised and a little worried, he had to keep an eye on the Sandmen. "He's not in the house, but I heard that they were up to some mischief again," Minato shrugged. "And has anything been heard about the sons and daughter of the Kazekage?" Sojiro asked worriedly, looking at the fourth with a piercing gaze. "No," Minato shook his head in response. "Did you bring them with you?" "I couldn't abandon my students." Sojiro, who had risen from his chair, spread his arms and headed for the exit. "I'll go look for them. If I meet Naruto, I'll send him home with a clone." "We will be grateful," Kushina shouted, waving goodbye to the young man. Sojiro immediately created several clones outside the threshold and they all went in search of their charges. He found them in the park where the village kids usually gathered. The children were discussing something heatedly and actively gesticulating, laughter could be heard. "Hello," the man greeted, approaching the gathering with a wide smile on his lips. Yes, a smile is his eternal companion, but Uzumaki Naruto has long since decided for himself to meet all dangers or joys with a smile. At that moment Naruto, this time, pounced on the fair-haired man with wild cries. The boy was very happy with his uncle, immediately starting to dump tons of information on his head, interspersed with a storm of delight. Sojiro picked up his copy in his arms and listened to absolutely everything. Among the seemingly nonsense there could be very useful information. And while he was listening, he quickly glanced over the guys' heads, finding the necessary ones, he calmed down. The brothers and sisters stood next to Sasuke, and listened to what he was telling them. Shikamaru was also nearby, also listening to the boy from the Uchiha clan. "Time to go home," Sojiro commanded the children when Naruto finished his story. The little shinobi did not want to disperse, and a stream of indignation fell upon the man, but he was adamant. And the children still had to, accompanied by Sojiro's clones, direct their steps home. Naruto, also accompanied by a clone, headed towards his place, continuing to blab his stories and delights. Original Sojiro put Gaara on his back, and holding hands with Temari and Kankuro, he went to his house. The blonde was not allowed to sleep normally. Kakashi Sr. burst into the room where Sojiro and Seijiro were sleeping. He woke up his former students with kicks and announced that Kushina had gone into labor. Both friends immediately jumped up. Sojiro quickly created a clone to keep an eye on the students, and he quickly threw on normal clothes and jumped out the window. Sasuke and Kakashi hurried after him. Guy was already in the newly built shelter, where Kushina gave birth last time. The three shinobi hurried at full speed. It's not too late, it's all just beginning, and the four ninjas from the future are in for several hours of waiting and tension. But everything went great. The second son was born quickly and easily. The seal, although it opened, still could not release the fox, because during the first birth, the seal was closed by Naruto, with his ki, which is much stronger than Minato's ki. Even if the creator himself is the fourth, it doesn't matter that the seal he used on his son, in another past, and the one that stood on Kushina, were slightly different. The attack did not happen, and the happy parents smiled tiredly at their son and welcomed him into this world. "Hello, Naoki," Kushina said quietly, "I'm your mom, and this is your dad, and you also have a brother, Naruto." For extra shinobi came out, they didn't want to interfere. Naruto from the future looked with light sadness, before leaving the room, at the version of his family, only he was no longer their son, not here, not now. But he was sincerely happy, and wished them all happiness. "Naoki, I'm your brother too, Naruto, only I'm from another future that you'll never have. I'll always protect you, until the very end. Grow up happy and strong, brother." Chapter 13 Little Naoki was surrounded by the care and love of many people. Parents, friends, and acquaintances, everyone really liked the baby with the red fluff of hair on his head. Kushina doted on her second son. He looked very much like her, and his mother's character was already showing through. Naruto was very responsible for his brother. Now he was at home more often, babysitting Naoki, practically never leaving him. Naruto kept asking if he was really like that. To which his father or mother only chuckled and nodded. The discouraged boy returned to his brother's crib and looked at him with a critical glance for a long time. Sasuke now came to Naruto's house, as always with new scrolls or books. Minato noticed them once, but didn't reveal his presence. Let them study, it's good for them. In any case, the two rascals sit in one place for a long time, and there is no need to worry about what else they can do. Although their pranks have noticeably decreased lately, the children have increasingly begun to train at the training grounds. Each time they would look for a free jonin and literally force him to teach the children. But the shinobi are already accustomed, and almost immediately agree, otherwise the children will pester them with their mischief. So Sojiro, having spent 2 months in Konoha, began to pack up for the return trip with regret. The Kazekage's children didn't want to leave either, but they had to go back. Who knows how Saken will react to the long absence of his children. Although the fourth Kazekage is not very interested in them, only in their successes in the art of ninja. Sojiro was terribly irritated by this, and never tired of trying to re-educate Saken. But he resisted as best he could, although he was already noticeably losing ground, becoming a little softer, both in governing the village and with his family. The mentor and his students set out in the evening, expecting to arrive at one of the towns, of which there are many in the Land of Fire, by nightfall, spend the night there, and then set off further in the morning. The idea almost succeeded. Sojiro, in addition to the backpack, had to carry Gaara, who fell asleep on the way. But the blonde was not offended or indignant. He understood that the Jinchuriki of the one-tailed was the youngest, and got tired faster than everyone else. And Itachi quickly slipped away from the village on a mission. He didn't want to bother with his sister and her birth. Shursui, giggling, went with him, telling stories about his sister along the way. How their parents only fussed over her, sometimes forgetting about Shursui himself, for which the boy took revenge on the girl by taking away her toys. "Yeah, Sasuke took my toys away," Itachi nodded sullenly. "That's because you're soft," Shursui chuckled cheerfully. "You were the same as a child, I remember." "And I remember that we fought all the time," Itachi answered, still sullenly. At this his interlocutor only laughed. How stupid they were as children. 2 Uchiha were heading to their mission, again a difficult one, to kill a hidden waterfall renegade. Itachi and Shursui started looking for this ninja, which was quite problematic because the man always wore a mask. Reading his dossier, the Uchiha were simply shocked. This guy was almost 100 years old. And he still hadn't been killed? Itachi wasn't sure they could handle it. So both decided that if they started to lose, they would simply retreat. A sensible move. No one wants to die just like that, and this is not cowardice, as someone might say, but tactics. Retreat in order to deliver a precise, quick, and fatal blow. The Uchihas didn't look for this missing mean for long. Someone told them to look for him at black market exchange points. At one of these points, 2 Uchihas crossed paths with him. The man was tall, stocky, and wrapped in rags so that only his eyes were visible, with red whites and green irises. It looked creepy. The Uchiha tried to attack, but realized that they would have to retreat. This criminal was definitely too tough for them alone. They returned to Konoha and told what had happened. Sojiro, who had come on a mission from Sand, was choking with laughter. "Where is this missing mean?" he asked through laughter. "In the land of rice fields," Itachi replied, wondering what in their story could have caused such uncontrollable laughter. "Great, then I'll help you, we'll set off immediately," said the former Sojiro, instantly becoming serious, "but I need to run home." The blonde, as he said, ran into the house, right through the window, quickly found the scroll inside, and went back out. The 3 ninja went to the country of rice fields to deal with that renegade. Sojiro seemed to know where that guy might be and purposefully avoided strange places that looked very much like a black market. "And this is the black market," Sojiro responded, looking in surprise at the 2 Uchiha, who had not guessed about it earlier. "Your criminal loves money, and constantly kills some people for whom they pay more, and hands them over to exchange points. We bypass them." As soon as he finished speaking, an unperturbed Nukemin emerged from one of these exchange points with an impressive suitcase in his hands. "Hey, Kakuzu!" Sojiro immediately called out to him. "What does the leaf shinobi want from me?" the renegade asked calmly, turning slightly towards the blonde who had spoken to him. "Let's talk and maybe come to an agreement," he grinned in response. Even though he hated this man for Asuma's death, but that was in the past. And now Kakuzu can be made into a very good supporter in the shadow side of life in all countries. The man chuckled and nodded, and Sojiro walked towards a rather shabby bar. They went inside, and the chilling gaze of the 2 ninjas made the entire population of the bar quickly leave their seats. The owner of the establishment swallowed, but managed to squeeze out a smile. "What do the gentlemen want? A drink? A snack?" he asked. "Get out of our sight, if you eavesdrop, you'll never be able to hear again," Sojiro sternly warned, sitting down at one of the tables. "This is the first time I've seen shinobi from Konoha be so bloodthirsty," Kakuzu chuckled, sitting down opposite the blonde, looking at him with some interest. "This is not the place to be as complacent as usual," Sojiro replied seriously. "So, do you know why you were being pursued by 2 ANBU from our village?" "Huh. They were even afraid to engage in combat." Kakuzu perked up a little, looking at the slightly ashamed Uchiha. "Although they look strong, Sharingans. They could fetch a good price on the black market. If you threaten us, Kakuzu-san, we will hand you over ourselves," Sojiro smiled sweetly. Nukemin just chuckled, a businesslike approach, really. And they were able to agree, for a monthly fee and all the leaf Nukemin to him as change at the exchange points. Sojiro had to part with a scroll full of money. Kakuzu's prices were too high, however, the blonde was not at all surprised. As soon as the 3 ninja returned, both Uchihas immediately reported that the clan had planned a mutiny after all. The 2 double agents were immediately warned to pass on everything so as not to miss the critical point. Minato immediately became nervous and spent a lot of time at work, completely buried in papers. Sojiro had to return to Sand and hang the problems with the Uchiha clan on his dear friend, Uchiha Sasuke. He was not delighted with this, and was always complaining to Itachi about his idiot friend. And Itachi himself had problems without him. If he could still cope with his brother, then with the birth of his sister, he began to think about leaving home for a very long mission, for about 3 or 4 years. Maybe he could find political asylum in Sand with Sojiro? But no, they still have business here, and they can't run away from responsibility. Itachi agreed with the 4th that the Uchiha would subtly hint to the clan that everything could be resolved peacefully. But the current head of the clan, Fugaku, did not want to listen to his eldest son. "Itachi, don't you really want a better life for our clan? They've stopped respecting us completely and removed us from power," Fugaku said, leaving his eldest son after one of the meetings. Itachi frowned and bit his lips, but he was afraid to contradict. He couldn't tell the horrors that Sasuke from the future told him, and what it was like for the Uchiha clan. and he couldn't tell the whole truth. It seems that you don't understand in words, a cold voice came from the window. The speaker said this lazily, and as if reluctantly. Hiko-san, you are now on the territory of the Uchiha clan. Fugaku frowned sternly and pressed his lips into a line, looking at the impudent fellow half lying on the windowsill. Itachi, also turning to the intruder, opened his eyes in shock. Seijiro removed the slight hinge that changed his features, and now it was clear that he really was an Uchiha. Seijiro also lazily jumped off the windowsill, and the Uchiha father and son could examine his clothes completely. The already half-forgotten shinobi outfit in which Seijiro appeared in the leaf. Black pants, black fabric tied with a thick purple cord on the belt. A grayish t-shirt with a wide stand-up collar, as the Uchihas really liked to wear, black bracers on his hands, a katana behind his back. The young man walked past Itachi and Fugaku, and sat down on one of the pillows, turning his back to them, as if deliberately demonstrating the clan emblem on his clothes. Seijiro, Itachi whispered, still mesmerized by the man's resemblance to him. Fugaku walked around the seated man and sat down opposite him, looking closely at the features of a seemingly familiar person. He's the spitting image of Uchiha Izuna, he exclaimed, to which Seijiro responded with only a simple chuckle. Didn't Nisan tell you who I am? Sasuke asked proudly, the man who had once been his father, but not in this reality. Nisan? Fugaku was surprised. I am, Itachi answered, sitting down next to his brother from the future. I am Uchiha Sasuke. The former vessel for Orochimaru only glanced sideways at the object of his past revenge and hatred. What? Fugaku was surprised, not quite understanding what they were talking about. I don't intend to repeat myself, Sasuke answered rather rudely. I came here to kill you if you refuse to peacefully end your rebellion. What are you saying, boy? The head of the clan boiled over. Without further ado, Sasuke pulled the katana from the sheath on his back, and the blade was covered in lightning. The man closed his eyes, and when he opened them, the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was burning in them. Fugaku did not expect this, so he fell into a powerful genjutsu. The father of 2 sons and a very young daughter looked in shock at the bloody skies with a red moon, at the blackness of the night with flickering white silhouettes telling him what would happen if the Uchiha clan chose to rebel. Sasuke showed the same thing that Itachi once showed him, how his brother slaughtered the clan. Fugaku's father and Mikoto's mother lying on the floor in pools of blood, 2 old merchants from a shop near the house killed, his brother leaving with tears in his eyes, in which the Mangekyo was burning. And then, as if in fast motion, the years flew by, making the youngest of the surviving Uchiha a cold and ruthless teenager. Meetings of 2 brothers, where the elder became completely emotionless, a soulless doll. Cries for revenge from the younger, and his defeat to a stronger opponent. And the last battle, which ended with the death of Itachi. And how later the younger one had the elder's eyes transplanted into him. Only after that Sasuke released his father from the illusion. Fugaku, breathing heavily, fell forward, holding out his hands so as not to disgrace himself in front of his son, or in front of, the second son from the future. What he saw, indeed, was the future Fugaku did not want for his clan. Sasuke calmly put the extinguished blade back into its sheath and rose to his feet. He walked to the window and looked into the distance with an unseeing gaze. You can do anything in genjutsu, why should I believe what you show me? Fugaku asked, catching his breath and once again becoming the imperturbable head of the clan. You may not believe me, father, Sasuke answered without turning around, but you can ask Sojiro what he thinks about this. He's not in Konoha right now, there's no one to ask, Fugaku answered with a hint of sarcasm. Sasuke chuckled. Itachi sat there, holding his breath, afraid to disrupt this dialogue. You're right. Just what I've shown you now, and if you decide to rebel anyway, I'll be the executioner. My brother, dying, gave me his last will, to protect Konoha at the cost of his life. And I'm going to fulfill it. Finally, the man, Sasuke from the future, turned around, tears in the corners of his eyes. It was still hard to tell and even show his story. But time healed, and especially helped his only friend, who understands Sasuke perfectly, Naruto, you idiot, thank you. Well, I'll believe it, Fugaku closed his eyes. Then come to the 4th Hokage and talk to him, Sasuke said, returning to his formal tone, and it is better to live without any power than to rot in the ground, leaving your children to deal with the cruelty of the world alone. The black-haired man climbed onto the windowsill and disappeared into the falling twilight, melting away like a ghost from the future. Perhaps it was a ghost, trying to warn his ancestors against an irreparable mistake. There's just a little bit left, I just didn't know how to wrap it all up, because I have a rough ending. Sorry for the delay, the next chapter will be out exactly on time. Thanks for reading. Chapter 14 The beast named chronology is missing, so don't say that what happened is slightly out of canon. Read, write reviews, scold if there is a reason, and don't forget to point out mistakes, I beg you. Naruto set up an obstacle course for his 3 students to test what they had learned. It was time to finish Gaara's training and return to Konoha. He had already delayed it, they had only invited him for a year, and he had been here for almost 2. And Sasuke sent a letter that he seemed to have solved the problem with the Uchiha clan. Uzumaki stretched and yawned. It was early morning, and dawn was just beginning to show on the horizon, brightening the inky black sky. The weather was pleasant, but it was a little chilly, and the sleepy shinobi shivered, wrapping himself in his jacket. A couple of hours passed, Naruto didn't even notice them, he was so lost in thought about everything that had happened to him and his friends. He was really glad to be here, but the understanding that this was not their place was arising more and more often. Sojiro. The boy's clear voice rang out, echoing across the field and getting lost in the obstacles. Hello Gaara, the blonde answered quietly, and, grabbing the boy by the armpits, sat him on his lap. The man silently examined the little Jinchuriki of the one-tailed, memorizing what Gaara had become. He was significantly different from the eternally calm 5th Kazekage, as the ninja vaguely remembered him, at least in that he knew how to smile and laugh. It would be a pity to leave the red-haired man for a long time, but they would meet again. Kankuro and Temari sat on either side of the man, also silently looking at their best teacher. No one had ever treated them so simply and at the same time so seriously. Sojiro taught them in just a year and a half what others had taught them for 3 years in a row. It's time to begin your exam, Naruto said quietly, having long since forgotten about the mask of the person he was pretending to be and the fictitious name. The 2 brothers and their sister calmly rose to their feet and, together with their mentor, walked to the start of the obstacle course. So, you see before you a forest, a swamp, a sandstorm, and so on. In all these conditions, you must show me how you will protect information from enemies. They will be my clones. Show me everything I taught you. Let's begin. Naruto barely managed to finish speaking before the children disappeared, instantly finding places to hide. Naruto still managed to give them the scrolls with information, because he guessed that the sand ones would immediately scatter like cockroaches from a light turned on in a room. The blonde made a seal and, quietly muttering the words of the technique, summoned about 100 clones, who immediately scattered in all directions, looking for the little shinobi. And they did, but the guys gave a serious rebuff, immediately reducing the number of clones by half. Gaara let out a victorious cry and disappeared again, dissolved, in an artificial sandstorm. Kankuro and Temari also hid, almost masterfully performing replacements and simple clones. All 3 of them almost managed to complete the task. After all, how could little children stand against a battle-hardened, probably the strongest shinobi? Did you hand it in? Asked the red-haired man, without even raising his head from the papers. Yes, Naruto answered. All 3 of his students stood behind him, simply with stone faces, already accustomed to their father addressing them in this way. Sakin would have liked to devote a little more time to the children, but he was so busy all the time that he wanted to send all these papers to hell and go out and stretch his legs outside. Or better yet, go to some training ground and roll out a thin layer of his subordinates who dared to tell him something about the papers. Even though they are